design suspension work for race cars is what I do for them right now. Yeah, McLaren does. Yeah.
There was for the S2000. There was.
I like how we talk about McLaren and S2000 in the same phrase. Within like 3 minutes, we're talking S2000s, Honda Civics, and McLaren. This is a great podcast. This is pretty
Welcome
awesome.
to the car show. That's exciting. Okay, so you got to live with the rich people in the mansion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because they wanted to talk about suspension all day? Or
because they just took a liking to me. They just felt like, if I say yes to this, I'm going to get fired. I know we lost a lot of listeners, but I think a lot of the nerds at home going, yeah, keep going. I like these guys. These guys are awesome.
I have a suspension boner right now.
Shout out to my fellow nerds out there because we make the world go round. Like I said, engineers lead the way.
Talks with Eladio. This is available to the billions around the world on YouTube in 4K and audio streaming services like Pandora, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. If you like this content, please subscribe, like, comment, and share. And now onto the podcast.
Eladio is joining us originally from Miami, now in Las Vegas.
Correct.
You work on suspension. Are you in a race team or what's your?
I am. So, and I've been doing this for a very long time, but this is what I'm currently doing for BMW Motorsport North America.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned, and design suspension work for race cars is what I do for them right now.
Wow.
Just until last year, before spring, I was part of their data analysis team. Mm-hmm. We were all working remotely. We had several teams and several layers of the company. Spring of 2021, they moved me to the design team for the new race car that is going to debut in 2023.
Ooh, exciting.
So that's what I'm doing right now. That's what I've been doing. And we just completed that work right before the holidays. And we handed the chassis and suspension over to the aero team. Now they're doing their work. So it's when it comes to race car building, there are a lot of layers to it.
Is it on a computer model or is this?
So we'll start with computer models and we'll start with the information that we have gathered on track.
Yeah.
And that's where all my data analysis experience comes in to the team. And so we take all that information, we plug into the computers and we come up with models. And what's going to determine at the end of the day if we win or lose is what happens actually on track. So we can model in the lab all we want and we can come about this close, but what gets us over is what happens actually on track.
So the cars you're working on, do they look like F1 cars or do they look like the baddest M3 you ever saw?
Not the baddest M3 I ever saw. So until last year, I was working with the M8
okay.
and the IMSA GTLM series. So that M8 got phased out, okay. And IMSA made some changes to GT racing. So now they brought in the M4 GT3, which I didn't get to work on because they had already moved me to the prototype division, now named LMDH, which is going to be a universal platform that can race stateside and that can race over in Europe. One car.
You just move the steering wheel over the other side? No,
I wish we could do that. It's just a universal platform where manufacturers like BMW, Acura, who's going to join Audi, Volkswagen, they don't have to redesign a car for it to race in Europe with their regulations. The car can race here, there, and everywhere. So it's also going to lower costs for developers and factories, which is what the WEC and IMSA is looking for. So yes, I've done most of my work in sports cars, and now I moved to prototypes.
But for our listeners, does it look like a normal car we'd see on the street, or does it look like something that wouldn't be legal?
So the GT cars look a lot like what you see on the street. The GT4 looks a lot like the GT4.
I can imagine a
M4 that you see on the street.
BMW,
with giant grille and the huge kidneys. It looks exactly like that, just with some aero modifications and obviously race stuff and equipment in it. The M8 was the same giant M8 that you see on the street.
Okay.
That thing was like 6 times wider than a Porsche.
It's like a limo?
Kind of a limo. And there's a lot of funny memes and things out there about the M8, but it was a really efficient car. So that has been the evolution of BMW Motorsports and sports cars racing in the U.S., bringing vehicles that are appealing to the public. They start out in the factory as your factory designed cars that go through production, but then they go into the racing division. So most recently was the M6, then the M8. Now we're back to the M4 GT3. That, at least sports car racing section of what we do, is very appealing to the public because it looks like the car that you can purchase at the dealership.
Yeah.
Right.
How much do you get from like F1 technology? Does it get passed down and you got, or where does it blend, or does it blend?
Actually, it does blend. It does blend because depending on which racing series you're dealing with, you have a lot of the same tire manufacturers that you're dealing with. We deal solely with KW suspension because BMW owns part of it. It's part owner of KW suspension. So a lot of things transfer over. But if you're talking about F1 prototype racing or sports car racing, what we work on track and what we develop on track trickles down to the vehicles you guys drive. Obviously BMW, Acuras, and Toyota, which I used to work for too. All that stuff that you see in your vehicles today was developed by us at least 5 years ago.
Right.
So all those new technologies that you see on a car, we're already in planning and development at least 4 to 5 years. So once it hits production and you can go to your local dealership to buy a car, that stuff already we did, and we conquered and we achieved.
But I'm not trying to race my sedan around. I'm just driving to school, right?
Well, and that's the thing. A lot of the things that you see in your own sedan, it
Yeah.
could be, you're thinking, it's a grocery getter, Camry. No, a lot of the things came from motorsports.
Yeah.
A lot of the internal pieces in the engine and how they are able to have a long life, that longevity that was designed into those internal pieces came from motorsports.
What's your specific role there at BMW?
So right now I'm part of the design and engineering team for the new prototype car.
Do they break it up into like one person does maybe the struts, one person does?
No, they break it up into different divisions. So we have the suspension division, which I'm part of, and we are a team of 7 people, and we all work together. I'm the only one in the West Coast. I'm working with guys from Spain, Italy, Germany,
Nice.
and it's all virtual. And then you have the aerodynamics division, you have the chassis division, you have the engine part of things. So all these layers have to come in at some point to build a car that is actually going to perform on track.
Do you just dream about bolts on A-arms and?
I dream a lot about computer-aided design. And the thing about engineers is that our brains never turn off.
Yeah.
We're always thinking about what's next or what we need to change to the car to make it better. Even when you're driving down the street, you can be thinking, I'm going to the park, I'm going to the grocery store. For us, it's like, why is my car moving in this direction over the bumps? Or why do I hear a different pitch and wind noise over my car when I'm passing a truck on the freeway? Our brains are working that way all the time. So it's weird, but at the same time, it's entertaining. You keep yourself entertained a lot.
You sound very calm, but this is like, to most boys, like this is exciting. Like you're literally working on race cars. This is fantastic.
And it's exciting to a point because you need to understand that the work is very serious.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we're designing machines and equipment and race car parts and things like that we have to put in the hands of a human.
Yeah.
We can design the best car possible, but if we don't blend in with our drivers well, we're never going to get anywhere. Success depends on, at the end of the day, still a human. It could be an F1 car.
Yeah.
You still have to put it in the hands of a human.
What if you don't win enough? Does your job start to look suspect?
Yeah. So a lot of our contracts, absolutely. A lot of our contracts are based on performance clauses.
Yeah.
And we sign for that. So at the end of the day, if we're not performing, the next
Wow.
person is going to come in and take my job. Oh yeah. So
high stakes.
we're under a lot of pressure because it's
stressful.
it is very high stakes. It's very interesting what goes on behind the scenes.
motherfucker, drive!
A lot of people don't know this.
Blame the driver, not you.
And that's the thing. A lot of people see the driver. So let's take the F1 reference.
Yeah.
Those are the guys in front of the cameras. They're in front of the microphone, right?
Yeah.
And they're the image and the face of the company. But there's a gang of people behind the scenes making this car possible. And for them to be also on a performance clause, it's very stressful.
Yeah,
it's very stressful. At the factory, there's a lot of sleepless nights.
Wow.
Hey, does it help to be a smaller guy if you're a race car driver?
Absolutely.
Because you're carrying around 20 less pounds or something.
Thank you
right?
very
Is
much.
that-
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, when you design suspension, which is what I do, you're looking at that mass that you have to carry it from point A to point B, and it's all
okay.
about mass and motion.
Yeah.
So if I have to carry a 6'5", 350-pound driver, my design,
Shaq climbing in there.
I'm going to lose sleep over my design. If you have to carry a 5'7", 165-pound guy like me, design is cake.
Nice.
So that's another thing that is behind the scenes that a lot of people don't understand is drivers are also on not only performance clause contracts, but also body weight and body limits because we have to design around them. So I can't have, for example, if I put somebody in a BMW M8, I can't have a driver who's 6'3" and then put a 5'6" guy in there.
Right.
Even with a seat insert, I need to make sure the car is balanced and it meets the minimum weight requirements and all that stuff to meet the rules. So it's stressful for them too. They need to stay in shape.
So if you have a driver, how much weight would he have to gain over the holidays for it to throw off your like 10 pounds won't matter, right?
Yes, it does matter.
Okay.
So most of their contracts are you need to stay within 5 to 10 pounds of your contract weight.
Wow.
Every time you show up to track, and you go on the scales the moment you show up, and a lot of them have lost their jobs because they cannot stay in shape.
Wow.
Ooh.
Yeah, it is very, very demanding, physically demanding on them.
See, North America is the most challenging there because we have the most delicious food available everywhere.
And not to say anything bad about other series, but you see a lot of other series racing in North America. Wink, wink.
Yeah.
Where the drivers look a little heavy.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, man, these guys need to get in shape somehow. Because
are you talking about NASCAR trucks? Is that who you're?
I didn't say anything. So I see a lot of drivers who carry a little extra weight, you know, and I'm thinking, those contracts are a little lenient compared to some of the other contracts around the world. But yeah, a lot of the drivers have that in their built-in contracts.
I literally never thought about this. This is fantastic. Like
How
behind the scenes of race car.
Absolutely. And if you think, I can drive around the street pretty fast, I can be a professional race car driver.
Yeah.
You're in for a rude awakening.
Already we've got the engineers' jobs on the line, and we've got the drivers under strict weight limits.
Exactly.
This is fascinating.
And a lot of the drivers who drive for factory teams like BMW, Porsche, Toyota, they are drivers who were plucked at a very young age, 13, 14 years old from the lower rankings. And they sign a contract with the factory. Once they get into their 20s, they've already been groomed, trained, prepared by the factory to be what they want them to be. And it comes down even to their weight and their physical strength and endurance. All that is prepared by the factory. So when you see them on TV, they have years of training.
So these poor slaves have never enjoyed a buffet or a bucket of KFC.
And the interesting part is that when we travel with the team, obviously, we have a chef on site.
A chef?
We travel with a chef because what they eat is heavily regulated. So if you're part of the team.
I thought I was going to say what you eat. I'm like, well.
And see, that's the thing. Now it's up to you as one of the engineers or administration or team captains or whatever. Do you want to eat with the drivers or do you want to eat all of the other delicious food that the chef prepares? So there's two menus every time you go to an event, and it's up to you to
they should only have healthy stuff instead of torturing your driver.
and the grilled chicken, or eat the pasta. So a lot of the guys go for the pasta, and because it's so delicious, and you're burning so many calories on track, and you're so tired from walking all day, and then some of us go for the greens and the grilled chicken and stuff like that.
Gotcha. Is there a lot of champagne around?
There is. There's a lot of alcohol in motorsports at the end of the day, of course.
Only one guy has to be sober during the race.
Yeah, there's a lot of alcohol at the end of the race. A lot of team personnel, they love their drinking. Okay, is how they enjoy themselves, and that's
they're stressed out for race day.
Everyone has their own way to decompress.
Yeah.
Some of us like to sleep or read. Some of them like to drink.
I just like to go into a coma and sleep for a while.
I like to pass out. Whatever makes them comfortable.
If I was a manager at Mercedes suspension prototype division, and I asked you to give me some accomplishments that you've done at BMW, what would they be?
We're switching to the dark side.
Accomplishments at BMW, 3-time winners.
Or actually, maybe accomplishments in suspension then. Were you working on suspension prior to BMW?
I was doing the same work for Honda Performance Development, and I did that in my early years for Toyota Racing Development too.
Liem loves Hondas.
So there you go. So that's it. So let's say you have an S2000 for
example.
Some of the stuff that we worked on.
Who has an S2000?
Some of the stuff that we worked on track made it down to your S2000. And accomplishments, 3-time winners at the 24 Hours of Daytona, the Rolex 24, 2-time winners at Sebring, the 12 Hours, 6 Hours of Road Atlanta, 3-time winners. So all that suspension that comes from the factory and all the design that we put and time that we put in the suspension has won those races for the factory.
How about specific details, like what was it that you changed in a specific suspension piece, or things that went through to help?
What are your secrets?
Like maybe you designed a spring differently. Maybe there was a load, or the strut had a different.
And it wasn't a design change on my part. It was more of a discovery. So we go to a racetrack in Florida, in Central Florida, Sebring. We go there every year for a 12-hour race. This is the most treacherous track in the U.S. It's one of the most.
Oh.
It is bumpy as heck. The surface is horrible. But somehow we go there every year.
It's got alligators everywhere or what?
It's about as bumpy as an alligator. And what happens is that the stress on the suspension is very severe. So in a period of 12 hours, second year we were there, the factory sent a different type of lower control arm for the rear, because they thought it was going to be a new design that was going to help relieve some of the stress. And it turns out that I was able to discover some stress cracks in the material during testing. And then we send that information back to the factory for them to redesign and come up with a different composite to help. That track is so bad, so bumpy, so abrasive that we tear up parts there more than anywhere else. So as far as a personal accomplishment, discovering that little thing that could have broken us early in the race, in a 12-hour race, put us out of competition, the pieces, the control arm stayed together for the length of the race. So
Nice.
I like to take credit for that. Sure,
Awesome.
Was it carbon fiber or what was the?
No, it's a aluminum composite.
Okay.
And it's got some ceramic in there too. And it's just very intricate material, especially for this track, just for this track, for this event, once a year. So, the length that the factory has to go through to put specific parts out there for a particular event is huge.
Okay, so I know you've been working on suspension for a very long time, it sounds like. I'm going to throw an idea out there and you can tell me how stupid it is. I've had this idea for a very long time.
Revolutionize the industry here?
Yeah.
Like I tell my students, there's no stupid questions. So go ahead, please.
You could have 3 coil springs. It's crazy.
I think of the spring and the strut. What if it were to be like not digitized, but say you almost eliminate the spring? I know this sounds stupid, but let me go with it.
Please elaborate. You have my attention.
And then you're going to use another strut the other way, and then it's going to be software driven, where you get cameras where it reads the front of the course, and then it's going to try to guess how much suspension. Correct me if I'm wrong on this next thing. I think on some tracks, if you push the suspension too far, there's not enough time. As a car bounces and takes turns, that strut needs to stretch and come back. It has to.
It's called a suspension stroke.
Stroke, yeah. So once the stroke hits, it can actually bottom out from too much going up and down. Not enough time for it to reach back. It's
correct.
So I was thinking with software, you get cameras to look at the course, and there's going to be some tolerance. Like, it's not going to be perfect. The cameras will try to predict how much it needs within the next 100 feet or 200 feet. And then it will control this 2 struts to, does that sound crazy?
If I say yes to this, I'm going to get fired. And it doesn't sound too crazy. And you have the right idea. At the end of the day, we have a spring, right? A coil, whatever you want to call it. That coil is supporting a mass, right? But that coil is happy to go up and down as it wishes, right? That's what it's designed to do. It's a piece of metal,
boing, boing, boing.
and it's a boing, 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 boing. Right. What is the strut there to do? The shock is there to control that oscillation, right? We don't have to have a camera system. We don't have to have any of that. Right now, as the strut or shock is moving up and down, even as it's going real time over the track, it's feeding information to our data loggers.
Oh, yeah.
Electronically.
Yeah.
We can use that during testing. We cannot use it during the race because regulations prohibit us from having any type of electronic communication to the strut. But as it's going over the surface, like as you mentioned, it's recording that stroke. It's recording the length of the stroke. So then we adjust the valving to accommodate for that. So if we go from a track like Daytona that has a lot of changes to the surface, and then we go to Sebring, which is a constant boing, 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 then we design the stroke. We designed the valving inside that strut to be able to tolerate those stresses. So no camera needed. We do that during testing, and then we put that into our data loggers. So next time we go to the track, we look for the same type of data to be fed back to us so we can prepare the strut spring combination for the race. So you were on the right track.
But are you saying you can't remove the spring entirely? The coil is kind of holding the weight of the car?
So that's what the coil, that's what the spring is for. It has to hold the weight of the car. And what happens too is a lot of people think, well, I'm going to go buy a coilover setup, right, for my S2000. Wink, wink, right? So here comes the coilover setup. You should spend your $1,300. Oh my gosh, you're so happy. You're going to put it on and you're going to have Dr. E tune it, right?
Yeah.
What happens is you buy something that's off the shelf, right? That designer made that coilover setup to work in this range of S2000s from all these years. Plus perhaps it may even fit like a Honda Fit, or so they have to design in a wide range of things, right? So it's not specific to your car. So your car may go boing, boing, boing. When they put it in another car, it goes boing, 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 and we can adjust for that. But when we design our race cars, it's very specific to what we do.
So we're laughing because Liem has an S2000.
Well, that's how we met.
That's how we met,
okay, yeah. We're sitting about 12 feet.
That's why I keep making the reference. Wink, wink.
About 12 feet on the other side of that wall.
There you go.
S2000 chilling out.
And that's what happens. A lot of folks do not understand the dynamics that go behind the suspension design, and they buy off-the-shelf products, and they don't realize that wasn't really designed for your car. That was designed for like 50 different cars. The manufacturer is not going to put something very specific on the shelf. They're going to try to broaden their design so they can sell more product of the same design.
So what do you think about the Öhlins DFV? I forget have you?
Öhlins is a great product because their valving is superior to a lot of other products out there.
Awesome.
And it comes down to their valving. They still use a boing, boing, boing spring like everybody else.
Right.
It's all about controlling that oscillation that we talked about. That's what the strut needs to do. And then you have all the little adjustment clicks and things like that. They put that into their suspension dynos to figure that out. But yeah, Öhlins is a great product. KW is a great product. I used them for years. Moton, excellent product. Never had an issue with them. And it all comes down to that superior design.
Also, you have to not gain 10 pounds.
I don't have a contract.
Well, it's going to screw up your suspension.
We can enjoy some delicious food.
Yeah.
Let the drivers worry about the other stuff. And that plays a role too into the design is the driver weight, where we put that weight, how do we distribute that weight around the car? And then comes the next layer. And he said, okay, you guys are done. No, we're not done. Here comes the aerodynamic team adding a giant front wing or a giant rear wing that's within specifications. And that is adding pressure onto my suspension.
So that downforce pushes down on your suspension.
Bingo.
Okay.
Yeah, it pushes on the suspension. So I got to design for that too. Not just for the weight of the car and the mass in motion and the stresses from braking and accelerating and cornering. Now I got aerodynamics to deal with too. That adds weight to my suspension and stress too. Over a period of a 24-hour race, that's a lot going on. So we have all these teams working together. All those layers I talked about at the beginning. Yeah. All those guys need to work together to make this car go around track efficiently.
How did you get started in this career?
Advertisement on a corkboard in college. So I already been working on cars for many years.
So you took auto shop in high school, right?
I did not. I was self-taught. So I learned how to work on cars by myself by reading.
Okay.
So I did not
take Chilton auto manuals.
I did a lot of those. And if I didn't have it, I had to go to the local library, check out the book, or sit there and read the information, read the procedure, and then start working on cars.
Oh, dude, you're from like the 50s or something.
Oh, man, I'm no spring chicken, and I've been around for a long time, dude.
You look good, man. You look young.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm 45.
Hey, looking real good.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So that's how I started. I started with interest in cars and motorsports. And then I didn't have any professional training, so I kind of taught myself how to work on cars first.
Yeah.
Then I went to college for engineering, and there was a sign on a corkboard in the student lounge that talked about, hey, TRD is looking for young engineers who are starting their careers for a test program in Georgia. We want to give you hands-on. We'll put you there for 3 months, working with different teams in a series that no longer exists. It was called Toyota Atlantic Series. Open wheel, like they look like Formula One cars.
Yeah.
Just smaller. And that's how I started. I took a leap of faith. I sent the application. They took me in, and they flew me to Georgia 3 weeks later.
Do you miss Georgia?
Not that much. It's okay. Not that.
Do you miss Waffle House?
I missed the Waffle House on the side of the road. My trips from Miami to Gainesville to Tallahassee. I missed the Waffle House at 3 a.m. when you have to pull up on the the side of the road because you're tired from driving.
So you were doing an engineering degree in Miami?
In Miami, right.
Where's it, mechanical engineering?
Electrical.
Electrical.
Yeah, electrical is my field of expertise. Microcircuits is what I do.
Microcircuits.
So that's a kind of a big jump, or how's that?
Well, see, at the end of the day, it's not a big jump because the basis of engineering is your physics and your sciences, right? So I can be talking to a civil engineer, a mechanical engineer, and electrical. We all speak the same language.
You got to be good at math.
You got to be good at math. You got to love physics.
You're good with data.
Good with data. Yeah. But at the end of the day, all of our training and all our schooling, we have the same basis, the same foundation. We just, after that, take each a specialty. I took the electrical specialty.
Puts me to shame when I call myself a computer engineer, a software engineer. I like to use that term. And then I think that I've encountered other people like in your profession. I forget what profession they were in, but they're like, "You're not an engineer." I'm like, "Oh, okay."
If you design something, if you can build something from scratch, you're an engineer at the end of the day. Okay. But remember the first rule of engineering: make it idiot-proof. Every college professor will tell you that. Make it idiot-proof.
Okay.
Down to the visor on the sun visor on your car. If you flip it over, it says warning: do not eat this visor, or something like that. Or do not hit your head with it.
Yeah.
Or do not spit at it or whatever.
Yeah, didn't there used to be a thing where if it was hanging at just the right angle, that if you got into a frontal impact and you could it would chop right into your forehead in some fatal.
And that's why a lot of anything that you just see, that light on the corner there, it has a big warning label. Do not eat this light. Do not cook it in your oven. Engineers have to design.
If you sell it to a million idiots, some idiot will find a way to.
And then there's where lawsuits come from, right? So rule number one of engineering: design idiot proof.
Yeah,
it may sound harsh, but it's the truth.
I think the U.S. puts too much responsibility on the designer. Like if you do something stupid with your chainsaw, it's like you did something stupid. Like if you jumped off a roof with your chainsaw, it's not the chainsaw manufacturers.
Because someone will find a way to blame the chainsaw manufacturer.
Yeah,
that's the American way.
But I feel like it's our legal system that's punishing corporations for making useful products, right?
But if I'm a corporation that I want to sell my product in the U.S., I have to make it idiot proof and put the warning on there, even though it may seem like the dumbest thing.
Yeah.
You have to put the warning on there if you really want to sell a product here. Sad but true.
But I think that kind of nerfing just makes people less cautious, right? It makes us stupid or idiots bouncing around. Kind of like, kids are very protected at bus stops and crossing. Like, look, I don't want to run over kids.
Right.
But you see kids behaving in the street. They're not looking. They don't give a shit. They have no fear of vehicles. When I was a kid, I would play in the street, but the minute a car came around the corner,
absolutely,
I'd run off the street.
Oh, yeah.
So it made me very aware of, hey, these people aren't paying attention. I got to watch my ass.
Well, I can give you an example. I work with a local school district too. And middle schoolers, we call them middle schoolers because when they cross the street, they stand in the middle. There's something about the middle of the street or the middle of the crosswalk that draws them to stay there. It's like magnetic. Yeah. And that's why we call them middle schoolers, because they like to be in the middle all the time and they don't care about traffic. But it goes back to that and the evolution of the automobile too, if you want to talk about that. So when I learned how to drive, it was stick shift clutch, no blind spot monitor, no.
What was your first car?
69 Volkswagen Beetle.
Woo!
I bought it for $500.
Oh,
nice.
Wow.
With a summer job that I had at McDonald's.
Wow, I can't believe it hadn't rusted out down there.
Oh, it was rusted out. There was no floor.
Air conditioning?
There was no floor. And the passenger rear had a hole in the floor about this big. And South Florida rains a lot and it floods a lot. And I had water rushing through the car.
Man.
But I didn't have the money to fix it, but I at least had a car that I could drive to school.
Yeah.
That's a different type of aerodynamics.
Yeah, exactly. So I bought it with the summer job. Yeah,
wow,
that I had at
fantastic.
McDonald's. Yeah. So that's been the evolution of the automobile, because people are so unaware of their surroundings. Now you have the backup camera and the blind spot monitors or the automatic braking as you approach something too close. All those driver aids came out of necessity because people are not really good drivers anymore. They are so dependent on the technology that comes in vehicles right now that they tune out of the actual driving, where folks like me who learned to drive a long time ago, we're more tuned into our actual driving.
Yeah.
So that's another thing to look at, and why vehicles have what they have these days as far as equipment and aids.
Yeah. It's dangerous.
It's dangerous out there. Yeah.
I think that's the source of my road rage. Like, I'm not a naturally angry person, but if you do something stupid on the road, you're literally threatening my life because the consequences are so terrible, right?
You're in a large moving mass at a high rate of speed.
Yeah.
Anytime you leave your house, you're taking your own life in your life in your own hands, because you can be a great driver, but you got to look at everybody else.
Yep.
And if there's a new driver, look out, because they're dependent on those assistant aids and things like that are in the car. They're not really fully aware of what they're doing out there.
Nah, they're playing with their phone and they're putting their music onto the Bluetooth. And
Lack of attention to your surroundings, the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
You want to go back to race cars, or were you
I'm sorry, I derailed there a little bit.
Georgia Toyota. So what were you doing at that first? Was it an internship, a job?
It was an internship. We didn't even get paid for that, but at least they put us in like an apartment complex thing.
So you actually had to move, and you paid for them
for 3 months. For 3 months, they paid room and board for us.
Okay,
and then they allowed us to work with different teams. So it was a group of about 12 college students who took 3 months off, and then we started working with different teams.
So was it like the real world, where you're partying all the time?
Actually, I was able to get out of the dorms real fast, because the team that I was working with, it was a great family. The guy, owner of the team, he had a lot of money, came from a wealthy family. He had made and put together the team for his son, who wanted to be a race car driver.
Rich people have it all.
That's the thing. And his son wasn't good. But the opportunity to be with them allowed me to learn a lot about open wheel racing on race cars, and also work with TRD. But then they invited me for me to live with them for the 3 months at their mansion. So I was like, I'm out of here. These dorms suck. I'm gone.
Wait, you got out of the barracks and into the mansion?
With this family, and they treated me like I was another son.
What do you think the difference was between you and the other nerds?
The other nerds had it rough.
Tell me, but why did they pick you?
I don't know. That just landed with this team, and it just happened that way. I got lucky. The other nerds had it rough. Because if you're a nerd in college, you're not going to be partying out there all night long. You're relying on other people to do the partying for you. So these guys were, working hard all day, and then they were not doing much, and they were bored out of their minds. And I had the opportunity to live with this family as part of their family for 3 months.
This is before the internet was awesome, right?
Oh, absolutely. This was 94, 95. Yeah, before the internet was actually super awesome.
This is when even AOL was lame.
We were still using dial-up back then.
Yeah.
Well, I'll go way back with this.
What is this, a fax? What's happening?
Yep, fax machines and dial-up internet connection. Absolutely. I know all about it. I know about pagers. I know all of that stuff. I had a pager.
That's exciting. Okay, so you got to live with the rich people in the mansion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because they wanted to talk about suspension all day? Or
because they just took a liking to me. They just felt like this young college student who was kind of broke, and took this internship just out of the blue, went to Georgia for 3 months. Let's help him out.
I probably saw your Volkswagen.
No, I had to leave the Volkswagen behind. We had to rely on the transportation from not the hotel, but from the dorm to the racetrack for 3 months, and it was kind of annoying. So, but yeah, it was a great experience. It was a great internship, and a lot of us started the same way, being an intern somewhere else. I had wiped floors and clean bathrooms and change tires, and I had to do it all just to get my feet into motorsports.
Was that right after your degree? Did you?
That was while working on my degree.
Oh, so
I didn't get my degree until
right?
I didn't get my degree until 99.
This is a summer internship.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so summertime.
It's hot.
But
it's hot in Georgia. Yeah, and humid. Can't wear underwear down there.
Back then, what was kind of going through your mind looking at that article? And then did you probably tell your parents at the time? Were you living at home?
I was living at home. I was living with my mom, and I told her about it, and she's like, "You're out of your mind. Yeah, you're not doing motorsports." I said, "Yes, I am. I'm going to go pursue this," because in her mind, doing motorsports meant I was going to be driving. I ended up driving anyway. I ended up driving race cars and testing for teams. And then when people say, "Oh, don't you get scared out of being out in a race car?" No, I've been on fire. I've been upside down in a race car. I've been upside down on fire in a race car. I've experienced it all. So
wait, if you're upside down, is that a suspension problem?
Sometimes it's driver error, where you feel like you are Superman and you're doing everything just right, and your concentration lapses for a second, and next thing you know, you're flying upside down like Ricky Bobby. And you go back and you're going, shoot, that was my fault. I did it wrong. I was too brave, and I thought it was a full send when it was a quarter send, and now I'm upside down on fire. What do I do? you have to unbuckle, you have to get out of the window net, the usual stuff.
Does the rest of the team laugh at you, or are they?
Oh, absolutely. If we are not talking at least about a serious incident for 3 hours later, as long as everybody's okay.
Yeah.
And while they're drinking and they're making jokes about, how the heck did you roll over? If we're not talking about that at the end of the race, you're not in a good team. You want the guys to make fun of you, and then at the next event when they do something wrong, you make fun of them.
Yeah.
So those are the team experiences in motorsports that everyone really enjoys, because it is a team effort all the way. And somebody screws up, you're going to hear about it for the next 6 months. Just the way it works.
Hey, Eladio, you forgot about turn 12, right? It's a left. It's a hard left.
Sometimes you think you have it and you get really brave, or you're in a car doing a 2.5 hour stint.
Yeah.
After 2 hours of driving at the high level concentration, like if you drive from here to California, you take a break in 2 hours.
Yeah.
You use the restroom, you're feeling okay. At that high level concentration of stress, people are passing you, you're passing them, you're watching for the car, you're looking at your fuel consumption, you're trying to take care of your tires, all that stuff. Your brain is doing 1,000 calculations a minute. At the end of 2.5 hours, you're tired.
Yeah.
You want to eat, you want to use the restroom. Your body, sometimes I could lose up to 4 to 5 pounds of water when I'm wearing my suit in a hot summer day in a race car. And, so sometimes you make some dumb decisions because mentally you're just drained. And you're just waiting to come in to get the next driver in so you can take a break.
Sounds like my relationship.
I was gonna say it sounds
After
like
2.5 hours. All right. Didn't last very long.
sounds like when I'm about to brush my teeth at night if I'm tired, and then you undo the toothpaste top and it falls, and after so many days when I'm not tired, I don't drop the top of the toothpaste thing. Then I start thinking like, is it only when I'm tired that I start dropping it? So, but that's such a mild story compared to cars. Just being tired, I could drop my toothpaste cap, but then
Just frequently.
It's enough where I think about it, because I'm like, man, I'm really that tired. I dropped it again.
I really don't want to pick that up.
And at the end of the day is driving tired. And it could be on the freeway when you're taking a long trip, 6 hours in, you're taking the family out for a nice road trip or whatever.
Yeah.
You're driving tired. Your decision making is not all there. And when
Gotta
you're in
stay
a race
fresh.
car at high speed and a lot of stuff is happening at the same time, your brain has got to be there. So,
Okay, so you do an internship in Georgia. You go back to school and finish your mechanical engineering degree. Electrical,
okay. Yes.
You said micro
Microcircuits was my specialty.
circuits. How's that? So is that like in a calculator, or what's a microcircuit?
Microcircuits could be anything inside from a computer to inside an RC car, anything that's got some type of small encasing.
Well, to a regular person, all circuits are small, right? Or you? So
not
it's
really.
Like more trend.
You can be talking about some of my colleagues majored in high power circuits. So this will be your distribution lines to your home, to a business, to a
giant electrical lines.
Exactly, giant transformers. Now you're dealing with higher lines of transfer and more electricity and things like that. So within electrical engineering, just like mechanical and just like materials engineering, you have your specialty. And mine was microcircuits.
Hey, so in Back to the Future, when the DeLorean has to drive past the clock tower to catch the 1.21 gigawatts, is that pretty realistic, or is there a lot of problems?
I can't even keep a straight face. If I answer that.
No, I mean, the car had good suspension, right?
The car had great suspension and it had great speed. And if you know the story of the DeLorean, you're like, why on earth would they pick a DeLorean for this movie? But it was a stroke of genius.
Because it looks great.
They could have picked a Lambo. They could have picked anything. They could have picked an old school Ferrari. They picked a DeLorean, and that caught everyone's attention. That is one of the most famous movie cars ever.
Yeah.
Because it was a DeLorean, for crying out loud. No one had faith in this thing, when it started.
Yeah.
You know the story about it. And to pick it for a movie and for it to be the Back to the Future machine, fantastic.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so you finish microcircuits.
Right. So I graduated from there, and then I moved to Vegas. Yeah, I moved to Vegas in 99.
Well, yeah. Was that for a job, or you're just like,
It was for a job. It was.
you're like, I need more excitement than Miami. This town is busted. What's more exciting?
Miami was just too crowded. Miami,
Okay.
I feel like I outgrew Miami because I couldn't get from A to B without having an hour in the car. And I had been coming to Vegas previously, before I graduated for, a couple weeks and things like
Gambling?
that. No gambling. I don't gamble.
Strip clubs?
No strip clubs either. No drinking either.
Wait, what were you coming to Vegas for then?
Just to hang out and have fun. I had an uncle living here.
Okay.
And,
Sounds like bullshit. I realize your work might be watching, so
Oh, no. Anyone can be watching, and everyone who knows me knows that I never had alcohol or anything like that. So I don't party very much. Okay. I am that college nerd with the glasses and a pocket protector. I was that guy. Yeah, I had like different color pens and pencils and stuff. That was me. That was my life.
This one, pens would occasionally leak. I don't think there's leaky pens anymore.
And it had to be a white shirt, right? And it had the big blue spot, right?
Yeah.
So I was that guy, and but I enjoyed Vegas because back then it had a small town vibe compared to South Florida, compared to Miami, where it's just so crowded. I'm like, one day I'd like to live in Vegas, not for the strip or the fun and the partying, because I enjoy that small town vibe. So I moved to Vegas to start my business in automotive, and I opened a shop back then.
Oh, you opened a race shop or what?
I had a performance shop.
Wow.
I didn't go straight to using my degree.
Straight out of college, you were just like, I need to open a race shop?
It was my dream. I always wanted to work on cars.
That's crazy.
And I took this self-taught attitude of, teaching myself how to work on cars plus my engineering degree, and then I started working on cars professionally, where I had a shop and people would bring me their vehicles, and I would prepare, race car build engines and all kinds of stuff.
Dude, population of Vegas back in '99 was just over 1 million.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
and now
we're over 2 million now. Yeah,
big
so
difference.
more than double.
Yeah, the area where I used to live was West Cheyenne, and if you picture Cheyenne and Buffalo, for example, Cheyenne and Cimarron
by Cliff Shadow.
Yeah. There was no Cliff Shadows back then. Anything past Durango was like dirt, right? So now you see the growth, right, and the changes to this town, and now it's becoming that Miami is becoming that South Florida, where it's just so crowded. Where the 215 is not enough to get from A to B, and there's always traffic, and it's bound to happen. It just happens to any major city.
Okay, so any young man that likes cars would love to dream to open a hot rod shop, right?
Okay,
is that basically what you did? You're like, I rented a space, got some lifts, and you were tuning up cars.
Absolutely, but there's two aspects of that.
Yeah, tell us more.
So there's that young man out there who knows cars, who let's say went to ATI school or school for automotive, for example. They got their or CSN, for example. They got their degree in automotive or basics on automotive.
Or can't you even do like ASE certified?
Absolutely,
like
you can
full
do
mechanic.
Of course, you can do full mechanic. It's going to take some time, but if you really want to open a place for your own, you need to be mindful of two things. You're either a technician or you're a businessman.
Yeah,
a lot of folks out there, and I preach and teach this all the time because I see a lot of shops fail. They're great technicians, but they don't know how to run a business. So what happens is that they get the space, they open up a shop, and they fail because they're great at working on cars, but they don't know how to maintain a business.
Right.
Or
got to pay them bills.
Or they are the business-minded guy who can't turn a wrench for their life. They think they can, but they can't turn a wrench to save their lives. So folks, young men who want to open a shop because they feel like this is my profession, this is my career, they need to understand those two things about having your own place. You need to be business-minded and understand the back end of the business before you open up. Yeah, you can be a great technician and you know your stuff and you can fix cars. Doesn't automatically mean that you are going to be a great businessman. You're going to keep this business afloat.
We're stereotyping the gender because it's literally true. It's mostly dudes that are into cars. Mostly dudes that are into being a mechanic.
Of course. And they believe that this is their future.
Yes.
And they're going to open up a shop with 25 bays and they're going to be rich.
Yeah.
When I was teaching automotive intro at CSN, first thing I would tell my students, you're not here for money. If you're here for money, leave. This was my introduction to their class.
Hey, how many women in your class in general?
At least half of the class was women, and I graduated more women than men.
What?
They are the best students in automotive.
Why aren't we seeing
hands
more?
Down.
How come we don't see female mechanics then?
Because they take more managerial jobs when they go to shops, because owners and managers feel that they're more comfortable there, and there's still that stereotype. But I graduated more girls, more women in basics of automotive at the college than men.
Dude, if you had a bunch of chicks running a hot rod shop or even a regular repair shop, you'd be a hit.
Well, there you go. You got a business idea right there. Make it, let it roll. Let it roll. And that was it. Is that attention to detail, that dedication, and that observation that women have, that some guys come in and they're like, I'm a guy, I know cars. Come on, I got this. And they will fail my class. But I will always start with that. If you're here for money, leave the automotive profession and becoming a mechanic or an automotive technician. It will never make you filthy rich, ever. You have to be a strong business mind. You have to know what you're doing. but at the end of the day, you'll never be rich. You can enjoy what you do and have a comfortable living, but you're not going to be a millionaire out of this.
What if you're a service writer at a dealership?
It depends, because a lot of dealerships work on commission, obviously. Yeah. The way I used to deal with service writers when I was a technician in at dealerships was, send me some work, you get a little kickback. Any technician will tell you that relationship with your service writer is critical. Otherwise, you're going to get oil changes and brake jobs. If you want the engine jobs, the difficult dashboard work, and you want more hourly paying work, you and the service writers have to be like this. It's like
a whole economy back there.
It's like a stripper and a bouncer.
Whoa, what are you talking about now?
Right? Don't they have to get some kickbacks to the front door person, to the bouncers, to the bar people, right? Same concept. There's always a back economy to everything. And automotive is no different. Dealerships are crooked.
What?
Yes, they are.
Except BMW. BMWs are good.
No, any dealership works the same way, because any dealership works on the same backbone of commissions for technicians, commissions for salespeople, commissions for service writers. And everyone is trying to get their best out of it, right?
Yeah.
And you have to be smart about it. Otherwise, you're going to starve to death.
Yeah.
The automotive industry is brutal. Any dealership that you go into is looking to starve you. It's up to you not to starve. It's up to you to have a wrench in one hand and a sandwich on the other. You don't take lunch breaks. You don't take vacations. You want to eat well. You don't do that.
So, I mean, that is a stereotype that it's hard to find an honest mechanic, right?
Absolutely.
So
it's hard to find an honest mechanic.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because everyone is out for themselves, especially dealerships.
Is your shop still open?
No, I shut it down and I retired from turning wrenches in 2016.
Okay.
After doing it for 20 years.
Wait, so did you literally finish college and said, I'm going to start a shop? Or are we missing
I
any
put
detail?
the degree on the wall and I want to turn wrenches.
Yeah.
It sounds like a financially challenging thing to do out of college. So how did you manage that?
I had some money saved up from jobs that I had here and there. And
since you didn't party much, so you saved a lot of money.
You see that?
Okay.
And I drove a 69 Volkswagen Beetle. I mean,
That yayo is expensive in Miami.
The what?
The yayo.
How expensive is a Volkswagen Beetle, really? Some of my buddies, they took jobs with the local power company, like MB Energy over there, and they started buying expensive cars.
Yeah.
I didn't. I just had a regular commuter car, and I saved my money to get my business rolling. And the other thing that I did that I always coach my students to do is don't get into a lot of debt right off the start. If you're going to have equipment in your shop, own it. Don't owe anybody for it, even down to your tools. A lot of these guys come out of college. They're young.
Yeah.
They're very impressionable, and they buy a lot of tools out of college, and these tool companies love it because they get them into $10,000, $20,000 debt right away, right out of college, and then they're going, "Oh, when am I going to pay this?" Making $5-6 an hour plus commission. And it's a brutal business. Automotive is not easy.
If you're an auto shop, are Snap-on tools worth it? Is it the way to go? Or
absolutely. Yeah, you're paying for the quality.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's some other tools out there that are really good quality as well. And it's all about your tools and your equipment. If I go to my doctor and he's using some subgrade, stethoscope and things like that, I may not come back to the guy. Same thing with the automotive guy, your technician. He's a doctor. He's your vehicle's doctor. And you want him to be using the most calibrated, most up-to-date, most reliable tools out there. It's what you work with, what you put in your hands to work with. Yeah. So,
do you think by chance, so was that, you said was it 99 or when you opened the shop?
99, right.
99. By chance, if you think about today trying to open a shop, just think about like maybe a college student opening a shop today, a mechanic shop. Do you think what you had then is so different than what they would be encountering now?
Absolutely. Not only economy-wise, not only the industry itself, but the automotive part of it itself. Cars have evolved and changed so much over the years, where we always like to say that we do more schooling than actual doctors. So look at the human body and how it has evolved, right?
Yeah.
Things kind of remain pretty much the same, right?
Okay. Yeah.
You have kind of the same organs, and you have, you may have a virus here and there pop up, right? In automotive, things are evolving by the second. So a technician back in 99 had different challenges as far as that goes, and also business-wise and economy-wise, than a technician who's fresh out of college right now wants to open a shop. They'll have a more difficult time because they need to be way more educated than someone back in 99 because of how the automotive industry and the design of the automobile has evolved.
Somebody's going to roll in with a hybrid car.
Yeah.
Not only that, somebody rolls with a Honda Civic, and you're like, yeah, I can fix that. Mm-hmm. Well, my problem is my blind spot monitor is not working, or my security camera is not working, or my uplink, whatever, is not working. Mm-hmm. And you're like, oh, I don't know how to fix that. I just know how to do brakes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
That technician is going to starve. A technician who can't diagnose a car with a mechanical problem or doesn't know electrical will starve. So that background in electrical that I had from college, that degree, allowed me to work on cars because they keep getting more and more electronic.
Hey, do you know a good auto electric shop in Vegas?
Auto electric shop in Vegas. Depends on what kind of vehicle you drive.
Say 2010 Ford Raptor.
Dealership. Go to the dealership.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go to the dealership, especially for a Raptor. Yeah.
You just told me a dealer's a ripoff.
And that's the thing. The more advanced vehicles get, guess what? You are more tied to the dealership.
No, it's just an F-150 with a giant suspension.
You are tied to the dealership because a lot of small shops or private-only shops, unless they're recently former Ford technicians who went on their own, they are going to be able to help you. But some Joe Schmo who has been out of the dealership game for at least 5-6 years, they have no idea what's going on in these new systems. So the more cars evolve, the more we are married to dealerships because of the technology that is very manufacturer specific.
Just a thought. Maybe I wonder if there's a Raptor group in Vegas, and then kind of like how the S2000 had.
There's a Raptor group in Vegas. Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's all shit talking though.
Well, hopefully
you get some recommendations there too. I mean, for shop,
and then they call you poor for trying to save money.
even in the S2000 group, there was some homegrown mechanics or whatever, mechanics that worked at home or whatnot that knew the S2000 real well. So that was kind of really, really cool to have. Right. Maybe hopefully the Raptor group has one.
And that's how I gained a lot of my clients too, was through these forums and things like that. It's like, hey, I took my S2000 to this guy. It was really good. You should take it too. Never advertised. Never did anything to kind of promote the business. The business kind of rolled in on its own, but because it was word of mouth.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was my specialty, Japanese imports. I did all Toyota, Nissan, Mitsubishi, Honda.
Did you watch the Fast and Furious movie and it inspired you, or
no? I did, and it made me sad. It just broke my heart when the first one came out. I'm going, why am I even at the theater? And it was that time.
My money back.
And if you guys are familiar with the Texas Station Casino on the north side of town, Rancho, right? Yeah. They have a parking garage.
Yeah,
that's where I went to watch the movie back then when it came out. And every ricer was parked in the parking garage. When the movie let out, it was just like a symphony of rice coming down the parking garage, and was like, because everyone thought they were in the movie.
That's right.
Because everyone with a fart can exhaust felt like, oh, this is me right here.
You can't drift when you're in a traffic jam.
And I am walking out of the movie theater going, why did they make this movie? This is so bad. This is going to be bad for business. And it actually made it better. It actually improved business. Because people wanted what they saw in the movie. And they're thinking, yeah, I want those underglow lights. And I'm going, no, I don't install those. Sorry, you got to go somewhere else. But how about the flames that coming out with the colors on the exhaust? No, I don't do those. This is a serious race shop. Sorry, you got to go somewhere else. It came down to that.
Did you work on any Skylines?
Once or twice. Yeah, I didn't work on a lot of those. Yeah.
Was the Eclipse a tank?
Absolutely.
Too heavy?
There was a joke out of the dealership when I worked for Mitsubishi was that the 3000 GT VR4 was a better car than the Eclipse GST or whatever it was back then with the big turbo. And it actually was better. It was a better design car. It was way ahead of its time. So I got into, when I started working on cars, I came into that early 90s Japanese car that was like the dream of everyone to have because they were designed ahead of their time. And that's what got me into Japanese car work was I love the design. I love the simplicity of each car, of those early Honda Civics and those early Toyota Corollas. That's what got me into it.
Not the Supra?
I love the Supra. Built a ton of those. Nice. And what's funny is I just ran into one of my old Supra customers yesterday. Yeah. And back in the day, we were talking about how I put together an engine for him that made 1,100 horsepower. And to the Supra community, like the Raptor community and the S2000 community, it's like, oh, he's poor. He doesn't have enough horsepower. Vegas is spoiled that way.
Yeah.
If you own a Supra here in Vegas, an MK4, you have to make 1,300 horsepower, right?
That's insanity.
Exactly. So I built him an 1,100 horsepower engine back in the day, and then he had a ton of fun with it. Great time. Good friend of mine. he wanted to go to a car show in California and Long Beach. So we put the car in the trailer. We went to a car show, and we had his dyno sheet, and we had his numbers and information. It was a Toyota-only car show. And people were walking up in California saying, 1,000 horsepower. This is amazing. How are you able to accomplish this? We've never seen, hey, so-and-so, this car makes 1,000. How is that possible? And for us, it was like, oh, we're not making enough at 1,100. 1,100 is not enough for Vegas, but you guys seem to be impressed. Okay, sure, let's go with it. Different cultures, different places, what they have accustomed to seeing out there. And here in Vegas, you're not making 12, 13. You're like, you're a regular guy.
Is that a supercharged V6 on nitrous, or what's the...
No, big giant turbo.
Okay.
30-something pounds of boost.
Nice.
Yeah. So big boost, E85 type of stuff. Yeah.
What's your feeling about LS swaps?
I like them in certain vehicles.
Okay.
I think they fit well in certain cars. I like them a lot and on the Nissan 240s. I think they just fit well. They work really well. Some people take them to the extreme. Like, why do you put an LS in that thing? What are you thinking? But I like LS swaps. It goes back to the origins of racing. Put a big motor in a little car.
Yeah.
Right? This is all so we can go fast, right?
Yeah.
So it hasn't changed. No matter if it's an import or a domestic, at the end of the day, you want to put a big motor in a little car to go fast. And that's why the LS is so appealing, because it's cheap. And you can put some power behind it in a lightweight vehicle. So motorsports and racing and enthusiasts haven't changed. Our faces just changed a little bit, and our cars changed a little bit. So when people are like, "Oh, I'm an import guy. Those domestic guys suck," you're the same people. Sorry.
Yeah, yep.
So it's all power to weight.
Power to weight at the end of the day. Yeah.
Putting the power on the ground.
And that's my job. There's a lot of guys out there building engines and making a ton of power on these lightweight cars. They don't know how to put it to the ground. And that's what drove me to suspension, because there was too many of the other and not enough of the suspension guys who can take that 1,000 horsepower car and actually make it stick on the track, especially going around a corner on a road course. That's why it drew me to suspension work.
So if you're running a shop back in 1999.
That's when I started.
Where does the journey go? Because today you're a suspension engineer for a BMW race team.
Well, the journey was to turn wrenches as long as I could. And I wanted to do it for at least 20 years.
Check, yeah.
Yeah. And that was a goal that I set when I was 18.
Okay.
I said, I'm going to get my degree. I'm going to hang it on the wall, and I'm going to turn wrenches because I really love it. I'm going to go racing. I'm going to get some experience in the sport, and then I'm going to take that degree off the wall, and I'm going to put it to good use. And my health was good enough for me to retire in 2016 at age 40. I was able to put my body through all the stresses of owning a shop and turning wrenches, which is brutal physically.
Well, your knuckles look okay.
I wore gloves, and my hands don't look like a technician's hands because for 20 years I wore gloves.
Nice.
And I wore white surgical gloves.
Oh.
And that's where the nickname came from, Dr. E. Because I always wore white gloves when I worked on cars, and thankfully my hands look pretty decent these days.
Nice.
Yeah, that's where the nickname came from. I have a stack of white surgical gloves at home.
For our listening audience, he has beautiful hands.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you.
Hand
Thank
model.
you. And it was all about taking care of myself and taking care of my body. I did some dumb stuff. Don't get me wrong. Under a car, upside down stuff, and when working on a car, I knocked myself out several times by hitting my head on the lift.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and it is all part of the job, but it was also surviving and getting to that goal of, okay, after 20 years, I'm going to retire of this automotive stuff, and I'm going to move on to behind the desk with a computer, looking at data and information and putting that degree to good use. So far, everything has worked out.
Wow!
So
wait, so you closed up your shop and then you just go apply for an engineering job, or what's?
I already had the jobs.
Okay.
So I was working that side by side with my own business. So back then I had the job with Honda Performance Development that I already started. Then through connections, through that networking that is in motorsports, then I landed the job at BMW.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's all about who you know. But I was running that parallel to my shop.
Was it like you were doing 40 hours a week at your shop, and then 20 hours a week with
40 hours a week at my shop?
Or 189 hours.
I was working about 17 hours a day.
Oh,
7 days a week.
Jeez.
Because my vision was, I'm going to work on the cars. I'm going to run the business. I want you to come in and talk to me. I want you to know that I'm the one who turned the wrench. Yeah, I had some assistants and some helpers. Depending on some projects, it was backed up. I will bring somebody to help. But at the end of the day, I wanted that client, to come in and talk to me about their concern, their problem. I was the technician, service writer, shop owner. I wanted to have that relationship with my client.
So you give yourself the kickback.
Well, yeah. I paid myself under the table. Go figure. But it was that relationship that I feel that idea that I had of how to run that business that made the business successful for so long was, and it changed names a few times and I had to move a few times, different locations because I grew at some point. But it was that relationship. You came and it was more personal. It wasn't like talking to the service writer and hoping that the service writer told exactly the right information and transfer that over to the technician. No, I'm your guy.
Yeah.
You come and you shake my hand and you talk to me and I'm delivering your car back to you. So that was the whole idea behind the business and that was the business structure. And I think that's what made it so successful for so long because it was me. I did everything. Yeah, it was it was hard, but I did it all.
How did you manage to do that with the, was it Toyota or Honda? Or was it Honda?
Honda Performance Development. There's a lot of weekend travel. A lot of, leaving at, 4 or 5 in the afternoon, heading to Florida, heading to Georgia, heading to Texas, and coming right back.
Wow.
And the next day. So, but it was the commitment that I put behind it. It's like, this is what I want to do because I knew holding on to that Honda job or that Toyota job before that was going to roll into something else. And it sure did. It's all about the connections you have. Like any type of work that you have, it's all about who you know.
How long ago did that employment with Honda start? What year was that?
That started in 2014, and it rolled over all the way to about 2017.
So when in your mind did you kind of have a game plan that you're gonna close the shop and you needed to have a backup plan? What year was that around when you thought of that?
That was I like to say 2010, 2011, when I knew where I was physically. When I knew that the 20-year mark was coming and I was already there and, where I knew where I wanted to be.
Taking too many concussions under the lip.
Too many concussions under the lip, too many rollovers under, and on fire in a car. And you start thinking, okay, what's next? What's my next move? Wow. And having that job parallel to me owning a shop was the key to always stay in the industry. And it rolled over to the next job and the next job and the next job. And that's how I was able to do it without stopping.
All right, young people, if you want to be successful, you have to outwork Eladio.
Oh, geez. 17 hours a day running the shop.
There's no quit. If you really want to make it in this business, and to me, in any business, you can't take a break.
Are you, and if I'm going to just flag in case you don't want to answer this question.
Okay, sure.
Did you ever stab anybody in the back?
Did you put someone under the lift and then drop it?
Whose neck did you step on to get ahead?
Wait, I'm about to forget the question.
Sorry.
When I'm assuming financially from the shop, you were looking at if you could retire. So, or was that are you at a point where you can not work for the rest of your life?
Yeah.
And is that do you feel like your passion is so much into cars that you will never stop? So you kind of, was it 2000? You said 2011 when you were thinking about that. So was that part of the equation too? Like, you knew, even though you retired, or that you could retire at 2016, your plan was to still stay in. Like that was...
Yes, the plan was always to never stop.
Wow.
The plan was to stop wrenching for a living, to actually stop getting my hands dirty, physical work in 2016. That was the plan. That was the plan, to stop there when I turned 40. And because I knew my body was decaying.
But also, he's wasting a lot of gloves.
And gloves are not cheap, especially those white surgical ones. So that was the plan. And just like at 18 years old, I had that plan. I also had the plan to retire at 40 and then continue in the industry, but to never quit. But at the same time, have this parallel life to where I was putting money away towards early retirement. Again, these are plans that I made when I was 18. So my target early retirement is 55. So financially, you can say this, no problem. Financially, 55 was always been my target. To say I can completely retire from anything that I do in life, and I can go on a long vacation somewhere.
I had stupid plans when I was 18.
See, I was that nerd with the pocket protector and my glasses, in class, thinking, I want to retire at 55. How much money do I need to put away every month, every year?
Wow.
And business wasn't always great in the automotive world. We hit a recession in 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
I survived that. because business, even though it was slow, I had a strong foundation.
Hummer did not survive.
No.
Saturn and Pontiac did not survive.
So all these major manufacturers, all these major companies, and all these major corporations went under. And here's this little shop in Vegas on a ranch on Decatur that survived all of that. But to me, the goal was to have a strong customer base and never try to outgrow myself. The biggest thing that I see out there in automotive shops, especially when they just start, is the desire to grow too fast. Because they're looking at, oh my gosh, I have these many clients. I need to have a bigger space. No, make your space the most efficient space. Keep it small. Keep it manageable. Then again, it's that business mind that a lot of technicians do not have. They open a shop because they think they can wrench, and they might be great technicians. They're not business minded, and that's where they fail.
Have you seen that Firestone over on Spring Mountain? It's a Firestone mechanic shop.
It's on Spring Mountain in Valley View. Is it still there?
Yeah.
Because I worked out of that one too.
They're out of business.
Is that a business?
Yeah, but they got like 12 bays or something, right?
Right, and it's the one that goes kind of an L shape.
Yeah.
Yeah, I worked out of that one too when I worked for Firestone.
I fantasize about.
Well, what happened is that the land was sold.
Yeah.
And Firestone owned the land. So I don't know if they're already closed or what happened, but when I was still working for them, the land sold to a group of Chinese investors. Because they were buying the entire block, Spring Mountain and Valley.
Oh, they're going to make some Chinese stuff there in Chinatown.
And the goal was to put a high-rise building there.
Yeah.
So Firestone sold the land to them. Ted Ween's company, who was owned by Ted and Ted Sr., they sold that land because they owned that land. And they got a ton of money for it. Yeah. But I worked out of that one. I managed the one on Rainbow and Alta. I managed the one on Decatur and Rancho for a little bit. And when the one on Ford Apache and 215 opened, I was the shop manager for that one when they first opened.
Okay.
Yeah. So I work for that company too. I've been around. Yeah. I'm here, there, and everywhere.
Sounds like you're unstable, man.
Not a lot of sleep. And
working 4 jobs.
And just loving throughout the year. At any point of the year, I'm usually juggling 3 or 4 jobs.
Wow.
And I haven't even counted gummy grip.
You chase women at all, or what's the?
No, I didn't do the chasing. I'm tired of that. I surrendered. I became a monk. It's just Vegas is hard, man. Vegas is a tough town for women, and it's been rough.
No, just get some tattoos.
I'm gonna pass on that. It's cool. I'll keep doing what I'm doing, and maybe someday I'll get back to it. But
what was Gummy Grip? What's that?
Gummy Grip is a local shop where the owner I knew for a very long time. He was my part supplier when I had my shop. And after I shut down, he's like, hey, I need a suspension tuning guy. Do you still want to do it? You still love it? I was like, yeah, I want to wrench again just for fun, not to put food in my belly or to pay my house bills. No, I just want to do it for fun.
Wow.
And he's like, come on down. So I own all my equipment that I use there for suspension tuning. I own an alignment machine that is fully portable and is all laser guided and stuff. So I brought all that over, and we had this great relationship for a while. So yes, I said that I'm retired, but I still work. I still work. I love what I do, and I hope that remains until I'm 55 and I'm ready to give it up, because I haven't been able to give it up because I still enjoy it, and I still enjoy racing and talking to my clients about car setup.
55 is when you can move into those golf communities.
And I don't play golf, so I'm gonna have to work on that.
No, but golf carts have suspension.
Talking to a lot of my coworkers in Germany, during this video conferencing calls when we're doing our design work, they're like, "Move to Germany, marry a nice German girl, and move over here." I'm like, I don't know about Germany. My German sucks, but I can learn it. Just like I've been practicing a little bit, but it's pretty hard. I think it's my Spanish taking over my brain, and then I can't pronounce the words in German. So. I'll keep going at it. I'll see what I can do about it.
So your motivation or drive to work your own business 17 hours a day and then have all those side things, that's I want to say abnormal. That's going to be rare. That's most Americans won't want to do that. Where do you find your drive from? Is that your parents?
What childhood trauma caused you?
I think it comes from my mom, and it was a very strict household when I was a kid. You went to school, you learned something every day. You went to work, no BS. And, you were a good person overall. And that's what drove me. And
is she still disappointed that you went into cars?
she still is. And unfortunately, because she only saw the danger aspect of it.
Doctor.
But and unfortunately, she passed away very recently.
I'm sorry to hear that, man.
But it was what she instilled in me. It was that hard work, dedication, don't give up attitude. Go to work sick. You're sick, you go to work. You don't quit.
Wow.
Oh, my back hurts. No, you go to work.
Wow.
You know, I didn't sleep well. No, you go to work. Mm-hmm. You know, that's what I was taught since I was a child, and always to learn something new, keep my studies up. And I think that's where that comes from.
Wow.
Just nice. my upbringing. That's, if you want to call it that.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Gosh, I feel like a wuss compared to that. Like my goal at work is to try to find an employer that will let me work like about 30 hours a week. I don't want to work 40. I don't want to work 50 or 60.
I gotcha.
Gosh, I feel so entitled when I say it like that.
No, it's efficiency.
That's how if I honestly in a how would I describe it? I view it as efficiency because I feel, at least for software engineering, for me, I know I'm not an engineer.
No. But in my eyes, you're an engineer. You have my seal of approval.
I could only create code. There's certain really technically hard things to create.
Okay.
In the software world, if you're dealing with a database, the software, right, the front end, the back end, the requests from the employees. But it to me, there's certain, that's what I call oh shit, it's been a while. Deep coding. I forget the term. I called it before.
Hard code.
It's when I'm in the code so deep that it's taxing my brain. There's so many variables that's in my brain that I have to juggle. It's literally like speed chess for 3 to 4 hours straight. And my brain, right about 4 hours for me personally, that's where I tap out. My brain is depleted of energy and everything. Right. I've met some other programmers, Oscar, who's been on this podcast. Okay. That guy's a monster. He could program for like 14, 16 hours a day. If I
loves it.
Yeah, I don't know how, like, I'll push myself. I'll go on if I have a project and I know the deadline is near, I'm able to push myself.
Of course.
So I'll hit 8 hours one day, 8 hours the next day, 8 hours the next day, then 12 hours the next day. But I'm burnt. My brain is done. Mm-hmm. I need 3, 4, 6 days of recovery. Mm-hmm. But Oscar, that guy's a monster. He'll go 12 hours.
And
I'm the same way with drinking.
Everyone is different in the way to handle that stress or their workload. Everyone can handle it differently. It's not that you're a wuss or you're different or that you're less than him.
I am less than Oscar, but
it's just how you handle it.
Yeah,
and with the amount of work that I do during the day, in my eyes, if it seems doable, I'm going to do it. If it seems like I have the energy, there's some days that I'm just like, I can't get out of bed.
Wait, how did you accomplish all this before there was all this inspirational talk on the internet? Like, you don't have an Instagram account
self-motivation and no caffeine.
You're not getting all these clever sayings and
no, just self-motivation, self-drive, that push that you have just to do what you're supposed to do. That no BS attitude. You go do it and you take care of things. No slacking. So if I had a client that needed a car by the next day, I will stay overnight at my shop, but I will sleep there. I can tell you, I slept there a lot. Wow. I had a little refrigerator, a little mattress on the ground, and I would sleep at my shop just to get the work done. Wow. Just for that client to be satisfied and say, "Hey, thank you for getting my car done. I really needed it to commute my kids to school." That was the satisfaction that I was looking for, and I didn't care how long I had to work for.
Did any sexy women ever flirt with you to try to get you to perform mechanic services?
Absolutely. Yeah?
This is real?
I had a large group of women.
Now we're getting to the meat of this. This is what we have this conversation for.
I had a large group of clients, women who were working at a local strip club. I'm not going to say the name because I think some of them still work there. And then the word spread where,
so this guy, cheetahs.
This guy is very trustworthy. When you go there, he's not going to try to grope you or ask you for your number. And then they all started coming in.
Yeah.
And I was like, why are all these women coming to my shop? And it was the trust that they had. One of them told me one time, I said, you know why I like coming here? Because every other shop that I go to has posters of naked women on the wall. And you don't have but nice pictures on the wall. And I like coming here for that.
I don't like sexualizing women as objects.
So I had a large clientele from a local shop, and it was all word of mouth. It started with one who just happened to land there one day because her brother told her to go there. And then she referred her friends at work.
Yeah.
You know, from her friends.
All right, we got the start of a movie, guys.
Yeah. I think the most interesting part about all that was discovering things in the trunk of their cars.
Oh.
So anytime one will come in and say, hey, you know, I need my car ready for a trip. So we do a trip ready checkups and prep, right?
You put water in the battery, check the tires.
Check tire pressures, you know, you got to check the spare in the trunk, right? Don't forget the spare.
Oh, that's why you're in the trunk.
So
okay.
you go in the trunk and you go, ooh, I should have never seen that type of thing. You know, so I think that was the most
Now you
interesting
got to tell us, bro.
But they always pay cash, which was the best part, right? A business who receives, you know, cash is a dream come true. You know, they never want to use a debit card or credit card.
Yes.
They always brought cash. I was like, bring me your money. I don't care.
Cash is good.
Cash is good. So that was another advantage of having them there was getting a cash payment for any job.
What do strippers carry in their trunks?
Dildos?
This you can tell us.
Toys, underwear, some interesting books, things like that. Yeah.
It's always sexy themed things.
Yeah. They carry some strange stuff in the trunk too, and a lot of leftover food for some reason. I don't know why they just don't throw it away. That's what I noticed the most.
Leftover, like
Roberto's,
Roberto's?
like Roberto's. You know,
throw that in the trunk?
like styrofoam stuff inside a bag. It's like, just throw it away. No, it will be in the trunk for some odd reason. Strange.
It's a wild life. You never know.
It's a wild life. You don't know when you need Roberto's and you just want to throw it in the trunk, you know?
There's times at 3 a.m. where you're like, fuck.
Yeah, you know, you clock out of work at 4 a.m. and you got to have some Roberto's.
Good thing I saved that burrito.
So, yeah, the trunk findings were always the most interesting. And the second part was the receiving payments in cash.
Excuse me, miss. I have to check the junk in your trunk. I'm very sorry.
Yeah, I used to word it sort of that way. Yeah, too.
Your headlights are operating.
Very, very loyal clients, too. Very loyal. They, they were, you know, they stuck to their appointments. They were never late. I mean, solid clientele.
I heard they were all in college and raising kids.
They're all in college. They're all trying to put themselves through college. You know? Yeah, absolutely.
Becoming engineers.
Yeah, same old story. Yeah, it never changed. And Vegas was the town for that. And they were willing, a lot of them, to go out of their way to go to that part of town where my shop was to go to a place where they could trust and it was reliable.
That's the difference. In Vegas, it's not weird to be a stripper.
No, not at all. It's just a regular profession.
That's a normal job here.
Yeah. You can be an engineer and a stripper in the same day. That's Vegas for you. You have it all. So that was some interesting clients there.
Dude, if somebody would pay me to take my clothes off, I would. I'd be very happy to.
I don't know about that. I think I'll be like the DJ in the background, you know, just playing the music.
You wouldn't take your clothes off? $700. You wouldn't do it?
I'm gonna pass on that. Thanks. I'm not.
Sexy dancing?
No thanks. I can.
If it was like $400,000 a year, yeah, I'd take that.
It adds up quick. It's a lot. It's a dickload of money.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's the wrong term.
But I see what you did there. Well done. Nice to place there. So yeah, I did have a lot of different clientele, all levels too. I could have one of them waiting in the lobby one day, and one of the doctors from the hospital down the street will come in and leave their vehicle and drop off. Or, you know, your regular soccer moms will come in too, and
you want to know what doctors have in the trunk?
Construction workers. I mean,
body parts.
I met so many interesting people and people from all walks of life throughout all those years here working in Vegas, and met you, and that was pretty fun. That was very rewarding to meet people from all aspects of life.
When you think back on your career, what do you think are some key moments of either decisions that you made that pushed you forward into your career, like taking was that Toyota's internship? Do you think that was kind of a crucial?
Absolutely. If I would have walked by that sign that was on that corkboard or that advertisement thing, or that, hey, come work for us, do this internship here, I don't think I'd be where I'd be today.
So prior to that moment, were you just thinking electrical engineering,
right?
And you had no idea thinking about cars, or were you already?
I was thinking about cars, but not at that level. To where I can work for a race team, I can work for a major manufacturer. I wasn't thinking about it yet, and that opened my eyes and the doors to a lot of things. So if I would have passed that up, I think things would have gone differently.
What do you? So after that, what are some other key moments? Was it? I guess opening your shop was a big moment.
Opening
probably
the shop and finding a way to stay afloat, that was huge.
Did it have a cool Japanese name?
No, not really. I took the letter H and the number 1 from a series that we used to compete in. It was class was called H1.
Okay.
Because it was a Honda 1 class in NASA Pro Racing. And then I took that and I called it H1 Performance. No cool Japanese names, no funny stuff. So that's what I called it.
Godzilla cars?
What was that?
Not Godzilla cars?
Not Godzilla cars. No Baby Godzilla or anything like that. And that was a critical point came where I wanted to expand. I wanted to grow. I wanted to add separate things to the business, which was doing well. And the cool thing back then, when I was making this particular decision, was having a dyno in your shop where you can put cars on there and test horsepower and things like that and tune cars. It was either making that commitment and spending that money, or bringing in professional alignment equipment for suspension tuning.
So choosing the investments that'll elevate your shops.
I went the alignment route.
Yeah.
And I still own the machine to this day because it was a prototype that, I'm not going to say the name of the manufacturer and the developer. It was a prototype that was out there, and I was the first one who bought it in Vegas.
Wow.
I took that risk instead of going the dyno route, which is the most popular route. And that would have been a failure because it would have been a $400,000 investment that would have gone down the drain. This other machine was cheaper, and it was paid for within a year.
So better business.
The rate of return on that investment,
wow.
And that pushed the business forward.
Is it a different dyno for front wheel cars than rear wheel drive, or do you just turn the car around?
No, it's you can turn the car around, and then you also have the all-wheel drive machines that you can set up for just rear, just for front. So yeah, it depends on the manufacturer of the machine. And also there's accuracy things that go with it. You also have machines that take up a lot of space. Then you have machines from like Dynapack that are just small pods that take up less space. So all the things that as a business owner you got to look at is like, can I put this in my shop? Is this going to be profitable enough for me to pay it back? Because I was still that mentality that I don't want to owe anyone any money. I want to own my own equipment. I don't want to close the shop and still have to pay for things that I never owned. And when I closed, I owned everything. So I didn't owe anybody.
So in the car tuner world, there's a trend called stance.
Oh,
God. Where you tilt your wheels.
I just got this itch in the back of my neck.
Based on everything we've talked about so far, is this an abomination? Is this the worst thing that ever happened to automobiles?
I will not call it an abomination because at the end of the day, everyone has their liking.
For our listeners, this is where you tilt your wheels at some impossible angle so that it's not useful to drive on, but it looks like your wheels are tilted up on the side. It's a wacky...
it's a wacky deal, and it's a trend, just like anything else, just like putting little curtains on a VIP car. Yeah. Or those long stick handles with a little fish in the middle, the clear-looking ones. It's all a trend. Yeah. And I'm not going to knock it. I'm not going to say it's an abomination. It's what you like at the time. Put it on your car.
It's against everything you do.
Of course, because it has nothing to do with function and performance. And people know they don't call me for that. If they have a stance vehicle, and the owner of the shop at Gummy Grip can tell you this. When it's a stance car, we're like, no, you gotta go somewhere else.
But I want the corner really well.
Because Eladio knows that he's not going to touch that. So if it's not function or performance, you need to go somewhere else. So, but I will never say, oh, that looks terrible, or that's a horrible trend. It's what you like at the time. Go for it. Do your thing.
Has anybody tried making a rim and a wheel yet that are not cylindrical? Like where you have like kind of a conical? That would allow you to roll straight.
I'm not aware of that. You might be onto something there. I don't know anything about it. But yeah, there's all kinds of trends, and you'll see it in the Japanese import market tuner world, where we all went to some trends, right? I've seen almost all of them, where the cars went really low, and then they went up a little bit, and then they were low again. They had the big flares or body kits. Oh, those were horrible. Graphics, again, Fast and Furious pushed that.
When you hang a stuffed animal from the bumper,
stuffed animal from the bumper.
Is there a meaning to that, or is it just cute?
Not that I know of. I don't know. And it's all trends out there that
is the origins of stance. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. If you guys happen to know, it's so with drifting. Often the camber you want is that negative camber?
You want more negative in the front. Yes.
So then I thought, I'm not sure if I heard this correctly. So that started with drifting, where you want that camber. So then with stance, they just took it to the extreme.
Well, with stance, and the way I understood it and the way it started was trying to stuff as much wheel and tire under a car to the point where you couldn't really fit it with the tire standing up straight. So you had to tuck it underneath, and you had to stance it or tilt that tire in for it to fit under the body of the car. So the way it was taught to me, or the way I learned it really wasn't about drifting. It was about stuffing as much wheel and tire under a car and running it so low to the point where the car could not sit over the wheel and tire. Normally, you have to tuck it in just to clear it.
I thought it was because in the old days, like the cheap way to lower your car would be to chop a couple of coils off your spring.
Coils. I did that too. I came from that generation.
But in effect, doesn't that kind of sit you lower and tilt your wheels in?
Correct. Yeah. So anytime you change the ride height of a car, you're going to change the geometry of the car and the way the tire sits on the ground. So that's what we come in as chassis suspension tuners to make that correction, right?
Yeah.
But when you take it to the extreme like that, some of these stance cars, there's no way in the heck I'm going to be able to help you with it. You're on your own, and then you have that bad tire wear and you're buying tires every 3 months. But it's all about the trends, the look, what the kids are into now. I respect them 100%. I just don't work on them. It's the truth. Everyone
I don't
knows.
respect them. I think it's silly.
I respect them, but I don't work on them. You wouldn't catch me dead working on one of those cars.
I think it's great that they're having fun. I love to see people having
because
fun. Yeah.
I had fun with my Volkswagen. That was a trend back then. Everyone in high school had to have a Volkswagen Beetle. That's why I bought one. Not because I liked it from the start, because my buddies had them.
Okay.
And unfortunately, mine had a hole in the floor about this big where the water will rust through it. But it's all trends. We all went through it as teenagers and young adults.
So it's stance kind of on the far spectrum, and then say F1 on the other far spectrum. I kind of
polar opposites here. You be careful what you say next about whatever you're going to say. I don't know where you're going with this, but I'm nervous right now.
I feel like I don't know where I am on that spectrum where, so say, okay, I forget my Olin's DFV suspension was, I want to say it was like, I think it was $2,400, I think. Okay. And when I think about that, that's $2,400. That's a lot of money. That's
like 5 VWs.
Yeah, back then. That's more than for some people's rent. That's more than a month's rent for some people.
Of course.
A lot of people, yeah.
Yeah. But am I really putting those Olins to work? I have yet to track my car. I unfortunately got in a car accident that kind of mentally changed me, and financially that's another factor. Getting on a track costs money too.
Of course.
So I look at myself, I'm like, I bought those $2,400 Olins and they're not being used. So I'm no better than the stance guy, I feel like.
Well, and it's all about and I do this a lot at the shop, is educating my clients. You need to know what your target is going to be with this car. You need to know what you want to do with it. If at that point, when you bought this $2,400 piece of suspension, you really wanted to track it, you really want to perform on track, and it was going to be your track monster all the time, I can't knock it. Yeah, you made a good investment. But if you're a guy out there who just wants to lower the car and just wants the looks, you're not really looking for performance or function, buy the $1,200 ones. Don't buy the $2,400.
Yeah.
So that's how I separated things. Is it about the looks, or is it about the function and performance? So
but you like being more higher performance, right? You like the idea of it.
I like the idea.
You like the idea.
I like the idea.
At the time, the idea was great, right? Before the accident, right?
Yeah,
of course.
But your car is literally more capable now than stock.
Of course.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you improved your vehicle, and that makes you happy, right?
Yeah.
I don't think you have to use it to enjoy it. I know you have to max it out to enjoy it.
But when I think about that, there's F1, there's stance. I'm closer to stance than F1.
Well, you're not, because separated with those two things. Stance, it's all about the looks, right? It's all about what you see first and the flash.
But I bought something, I'm not using it, so then that's why I feel
but nobody could see it.
But at that point, it was about using it and putting it to work on the track, right? So you are more towards the F1 spectrum of things. You're not there, but you're not so much a stance guy. Yeah. So when people come to me for advice and saying, hey, what should I really buy for my car? I just had this question a couple of weeks ago at the track. I had told the person, where are you right now? What do you want to use your car for? Well, I want to be like a weekend warrior sometimes at autocross, and then it's going to be my daily driver. Okay, then you're going to buy this. You're not going to buy $3,000 worth of suspension. See where I'm going with this? So a lot of the work that I do on a daily at the shop is educating my clients. So because I've already been there. I don't want them to, spend money that they don't need to spend. If they say, no, I want looks, all right, you go buy these wheels, stance it out, and then nice to meet you. See you never. Yeah. So that's a lot of what I do on a daily is educating and guiding my clients.
What are your personal feelings on transverse leaf spring suspension on high performance race cars?
It's the efficiency. Leaf spring suspension, really? You brought that up?
Yeah, I used to have a couple of old C5s.
No, it comes down to efficiency and the McPherson strut and spring shock combination 10 times better.
So C5 was 2000 up to 2004 or 2002.
I don't remember when they stopped. 97.
Yeah, it had to be early 2000s.
Yeah, 05 maybe. Yeah.
So do you kind of? I mean, just theoretical or opinion? I guess opinion really. Mm-hmm. Do you think Corvette?
General Motors.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you hate American cars?
Well, choosing a leaf spring on a car that back then, I mean, that was probably a $40,000 brand new car.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, it was 60, wasn't it? The Zeos, the Zeos.
Well, base price versus.
So, do you think that was I don't know, just we're just shooting the shit. Do you think that was a bad decision to go leaf spring for that expensive of a car? Oh, okay.
Not at all. It was where they were as a company and where the designers were at that time. So they came up with this chassis where the leaf spring suspension made the most sense for space and packaging. Also, a lot of chassis structure has a lot to do with it, or what type of suspension you can put in a car. So where the company was at that point with that particular model made the most sense. And obviously, as they're evolving and materials are evolving, the chassis itself is evolving, then you have more freedom into what you can do suspension-wise, to where they move into springs and shocks and things like that. But it's where they were at that point, and it worked for them back then, and I think it was pretty successful.
It was a pretty incredible car at the time. It was like super.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. No, it's just it's when I saw the leaf springs, when I was doing my personal research, I questioned why they chose leaf spring when at least my personal research, I thought the McPherson's setup was superior. But I mean, there's so many changes. I think in F1 they do the McPherson but the suspension's on the perpendicular to the wheel, because then they get more.
Right. It's at an angle, and it actually ties into the chassis or to the frame. And a lot of the pickup points are also on the transmission too, the car. They use the transmission on F1 and part of the motor as a chassis piece.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So F1 is a different animal because it's an open wheel car, and things and angles are different because also packaging.
Yeah.
You have to package so many things in its tiny little body of a car, including the driver. And you've seen the seating position in an F1 car.
You have to pull the steering wheel out to get in and out, right?
Yeah.
Right. And the driver is sitting almost in a laid back resting position.
Yeah.
Because of, again, packaging. So when it comes to suspension, you also have to think about that. Mounting points and also what regulations will allow you to do too. So that's a huge thing. So what they were doing back there with GM, totally cool. It worked for them, and they sold a bunch of cars, and the car eventually had to evolve just like anything else. Yeah.
Does the McPherson over the leaf spring just end up taking a lot more room than, or does the McPherson take up a lot more room than the?
It depends on the body of the car too. So for that shape of the Corvette back then, they felt like it was just going to take too much space, so they had to go a different route. Other cars with different shapes, different noses, different slants will allow you for more space.
Had the best trunk for a supercar.
Yes, it did. And I'll tell you a funny story, because I used to own one of these when the craze started with the Japanese imports and Acura coming to the U.S. and being labeled Acura. I had an 89 Acura Integra. They're like the first true Integra, right? Honda Integra in Japan. The Acura Integra came with what is called a torsion bar in the front. It had a shock in the front, but it had this giant metal bar that ran from the front suspension to about under the driver, and it's called a torsion bar. And it's a metal bar that twists as the car's going over and oscillating over a bump. This was your spring back then.
Yeah.
So we're talking about 87 through 89 production of this car, and Honda decided that even though they already used springs before in McPherson designs, that they were going to put a torsion bar in this thing and call it the Acura Integra. And I went, right, who would it? But it worked.
Yeah.
When Japanese teams started to pick up that chassis, that body for racing, the first thing they did was ditch the torsion bar and they put McPherson struts from an Accord because they wanted that design better. So out went these giant metal bars because it will save you weight too, and they went with coilover systems. But again, that's where Acura Honda was at that time, or let me say it again. That's where Honda Acura was at that time. They wanted to bring this car to the U.S., label it Acura, start this luxury brand company. But where the company was, it made sense to put a torsion bar on a car, and it was the most horrendous thing on earth.
Because it was cheap, or what do you think the motivation was?
It was space in the front.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is a sway bar a type of torsion bar?
It is kind of a torsion bar. It is a big long bar that flexes under load. Yeah.
Okay.
It was almost like a sway bar. These were all actually completely straight, and but it had the same function. This metal bar that flexes to allow for suspension movement, and it was something interesting that I learned way back there when I owned that car.
How is it similar to the I think a strut bar, because the sway bar is below, usually holding the around like the end links around.
That is your link between your left and right suspension parts, whether it's front or rear. That is what ties them together to keep the car from rolling. Right.
So,
And then
but torsion is
The torsion bar is going to run
it's the
front to rear.
It's the twisting of it.
Yeah.
Oh.
And it's a twist. It does a twisting motion.
oh geez, front to
And-
rear.
Yeah, and how that metal twist and the tension that it can take is all predetermined from the factory. There were thicker ones to handle more weight. There were slimmer ones to lower your car. It was just a mess trying to get that torsion bar in and out of this car. The first chance I had, I got rid of it. I didn't want it anymore. So, but yeah, it was pretty interesting. And I've seen a lot of design changes in cars, especially Japanese cars, where things that made sense back then now no longer make sense. Technology has evolved. Materials, more than anything, materials. Lightweight composites and things like that are allowing for different designs and suspension and things like that.
We had a podcast guest, Alex, a few ago, and he did
Go-karts
racing, and he ranked in one of the was it rental challenges or whatever they call it, but
you didn't have to own the car, but you had to race against
other rentals,
some serious go-karters.
But he ranked fourth nationally,
second
nationally. From
Trying
just
to kick the man down.
sorry, Alex.
Give him his dues, man. Come on, man.
By
number 2 work for?
During his podcast, I asked him, so how come if you ranked number 2 nationally, that's kind of a big deal. I think
that's huge, especially in go-karting, because it's so competitive.
Yes. That's so. I asked him, how come you're not pursuing this more? He saw he doesn't have sponsorships, and it kind of felt like he didn't know where to take it after. By chance, just in your career, is there any advice? It might be very different.
Yeah,
but
you got to start young.
And regardless of whether you're sitting in a go-kart or a sports car or a prototype car, any type of motorsport is going to cost you money. Money drives a sport. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Racing is a rich man's game.
And if you are someone without the means, you are going to sit out unless you find some type of sponsorship or you get that one big break. The other thing that I always tell up-and-coming or potential race car drivers who dream of becoming a race car driver is get your education. We don't hire race car drivers who are just, oh yeah, I know how to drive and I'm pretty good at it. You need a brain on your shoulders. You need to understand physics, science, math. So a lot of up-and-coming drivers who have the knowledge, who are really good behind the wheel, but don't have the financial backing, they never make it. And then you have the opposite end of the spectrum, which I see a lot is the drivers without the skill, the knowledge they bring on their shoulders, but they bring huge amounts of money.
Yeah.
They end up getting the jobs. How unfair is that, right? But it's the reality of the sport. The sport is money driven, and companies are going to hire these drivers that come with some type of sponsorship, even though they may not have the skill, the knowledge, where we can sit them down in a debrief session and say, look, this is the data that I'm looking at while you're driving, and you should be doing this, you should be doing that. And they're going, what does this little line mean? They don't know that because they don't understand the science behind motorsports. While that guy who has the knowledge is sitting at home because they don't have the financial support. It's a cruel sport when it comes to drivers in that regard. I don't think I would ever be able to make it as a pro driver. I don't think I ever had the financial backing for it.
Yeah, I mean it's like a lot of sports, right? I think the Olympics is a lot of people that have.
You have to have some type of financial support.
Even running for president.
Well, it's not really a sport, though. You don't have to be in good
But you
shape.
need to have the. Oh no! Sorry. I thought we were talking about the financial backing.
The financial backing.
Yeah. Even though you may be good at something, but it's really about the money.
Let's go back to F1. Those drivers in the back of the field, right? You will sometimes wonder, how did this guy get this job? How does this driver get to drive for Haas Performance, right? How does he get to drive for whoever, right? It's because they brought money. The team needed money. F1 is a multi-billion-dollar sport where teams are spending a huge amount of money. And some of these drivers who are not very good are bringing the money and they're getting the seats.
They're buying the spot on the team.
Of course. They're buying the spot. They're bringing that sponsor. And again, from the lower ranks, go-karts, to F1, it's all money driven. And drivers, a lot of good drivers that I have met throughout my career, they never make it big because they were never able to secure that financial sponsor.
So I'm going to tell a bit of a random story. I think it involved you. We were at a S2000 meet. I might be remembering it incorrectly, but I'm going to just say my side of the story. And if you happen to remember and want to change the story.
Was it at a Sonic drive-through?
No, S2000's never met at Sonic. I don't think so.
We did one day.
I was fucking around.
we did one day where we went to the go-kart, I think it's Speedway or whatever, or what the name of it. I forget the name of it. But I was about to get lapped by you and one other. There's one corner that really fucked me up. There was a hairpin left, and I thought the apex would be, or I thought the best line would slam on the brakes, cut in on that left, and go out. I thought that was the best line. I started watching you and the other person. You guys are bombing out because the lane was wide enough. You guys are bombing out to the end and making the left at the end, and you're just trying to carry the speed through.
Correct.
And I was like, why? How did you guys figure that out? Like, but so I guess my question to you as a driver, and you and this other guy was about to lap me. When you see these lines, I don't know, like, how do you guys see it? What is the art behind that? What is the creativity behind that?
Were your tears like slicking up the track so that they couldn't catch you?
There is, I mean, the embarrassment internally, yeah, it sucks, man. But I mean, when I see people figure out lines, there's some type of art behind that.
You want to call it art form? I call it art form. And if you remember the story the way you remember where I was passing you, then you're correct. Yes. If at any point in the story you were passing me, I'm going to say it was incorrect. You don't remember it right.
It was terrible because you guys lapped me. Because I mean, granted, I think that was the biggest corner where I was losing so much time on that one corner. I mean, I'm a bad driver. Yes, I thought I wasn't that bad, but when both of you guys lapped me, I'm like, dude, I'm a terrible driver.
So for our listeners, lapping is where they get a whole lap ahead of you.
Ahead of you, yeah. So they pass you several times while you're crying. Yes. And it comes down. Let me pose this way to your job. When you're programming, and you're given a certain task in programming, you've done it so many times, right? That certain tasks are super easy, right?
Okay.
Driving at speed and being able to see certain things comes with seat time. As race car drivers, we call it seat time. And we, drivers who have been at this for a long time, we can figure out things like that. And we can even figure out the machine that we're driving. So when we go-kart racing is one of the things that I use for training a lot. Because anytime you get into one of these go-karts that are family go-karts, each one is different. Each one handles differently, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Some of them oversteer, some of them understeer.
Some
of
them
the
sucky one.
Right? But as a driver, you have to adjust to get the most out of this lap time, and the most out of this car that, you get the shitty one, right?
Yeah.
We are constantly adapting, but that comes with seat time. That comes with that experience of having driven so many platforms, front-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive, all-wheel drive on track at high rates of speed, that the track actually slows down for you. So as I'm passing you, you are going like this next to me, where to you, I'm going, I'm gone, right? The actual speed slows down for you.
Oh, you just have to think in bullet time.
Yeah.
You've done it so many times that you can see things in slow motion. I can see another car out of the corner of my eyes. I can hear you coming behind me. I can hear you go-kart, even though I have a helmet on. I can hear you coming left or right. Those things that come with awareness, field awareness, the more you drive, the more seat time you have. So it's not that you're a sucky driver. It's just you haven't done it very much, right?
Yeah.
And you're poor.
Yeah, you haven't done it very much. But for us to get in a car and say, I never driven this track before, which happens a lot when we get invited to test a car, and they say, hey, can you get on a plane and come test this track in Alabama? I'm going, I've never been there. Send me a track map. I'm going to look at some videos. I'm going to maybe try it on the sim. And I'll be there on Saturday, and we're going to do some laps. And you arrive and you figure out, 6-7 laps in. I always had a chief engineer always tell me, the best drivers can figure it out 5, 6 laps, 7 laps in. Any track, even they've never seen it before. The good drivers can figure it out in about that time. If it takes them a little bit longer, their skill is not there yet. They may need more seat time, which is what we call it. So that art that you call an art comes from seat time.
No pressure. You got 6 laps. Figure it out.
That's pretty much it. A lot of drivers who get that big break and for a major team, they don't come with a financial backing, but they're saying, okay, get in this race car. You have 6 laps. Impress us. And sometimes they don't make it. Sometimes they make a big enough impression in those 6 laps to get called back for another opportunity. You see that? And it's like that. It's a cutthroat business. You have 6, 7 laps to show us what you can do. And that the fact that you can adapt,
Winning is all that matters.
At the end of the day, because money is all that matters in motorsports. And winning comes with a lot of money. So anytime we won the Rolex 24, it comes with a nice Rolex watch.
Oh.
You have the watch option or you have the cash option. Every time I took the cash option.
Oh, you don't have a pile of Rolexes, bro?
I'm not a Rolex guy. I'm not a very flashy guy. So I got to take the cash option. Some of the engineers, depending on the season, we got paid extra bonuses and things like that. Winning comes with a lot of good stuff because the sponsors are out there flashing through the TV screen. And the more you're in the front of a field and leading a race, guess what? The sponsor's going to be happier. And all that is in a contract with the team. And that all plays a role. You know, that TV time is huge.
What's up with the Red Bull guys? Do they play dirty?
No, not that I know. It's
just wanted to fuck around. Talk trash about Red Bull.
Motorsports is all about gaining that advantage and still being within legal aspect of motorsports. We do it all the time. We push the limits and sometimes we get caught. It is what it is. You know, we tried, because everyone wants to gain that edge, right? And sometimes we do some, questionable things. And we're like, please, let's not get caught on this one because we're going to get penalized or we're going to get a fine, and it happens. It happens because it wouldn't be motorsports if you're not pushing the limits, right?
It's like taking performance enhancing drugs.
There you go. If you're a bodybuilder, you're trying to push the limit. You're trying to get that edge, right? Same thing in motorsports. It doesn't change one bit. You want to get that edge over your competition. It is a competition at the end of the day when there's a lot of money involved. Absolutely.
Have you driven the Nürburgring?
I have not. That is bucket list. Actually, I have a trip coming up to the test site in Stuttgart for BMW. We have some special projects going on out there, and maybe I can sneak through and go to the Nürburgring. So that's been a project of mine.
What makes it the ultimate racetrack?
The history behind it, I believe, and the fact that it's just so long, and every driver dreams of driving it, because it's so spoken of. But to me, is where a lot of manufacturers go to develop their cars. Where a lap time of the Nürburgring and a car that works well there, performance-wise, can work really well anywhere else. Prime example is the vehicle that I drive right now. No, I don't drive a BMW. I drive a Hyundai. So Hyundai said...
The Ioniq?
No, I drive a Veloster N.
Nice.
So Hyundai said, we want to make this performance N-line thing, just like a TRD type of thing, or Nismo, right?
Yeah.
They spend the money. They open a factory and a development site at the Nürburgring. They bought out the BMW M designer for so many years, and they brought him to Hyundai for him to develop this car and for him to develop this performance line of vehicles. And all those vehicles were tested at the Nürburgring. That's why part of the name is a letter N.
Right.
One, because of the town in Korea where they were manufactured, and the other one is because of the Nürburgring, because the car was developed there. And it's an amazing car. It's a car that was really well put together, and it was put together by race car drivers at the Nürburgring.
Does it have incredible suspension?
Fantastic.
So, because
some of the best that I've seen in a very long time for a very affordable price.
Yeah, I'm a knucklehead, and I see a Veloster, and I'm like, oh, that's a Hyundai trying to be a sport car. That's funny.
They have evolved quite a bit, and if you look at the Hyundai history and how they started with those Hyundai Excels, they were hideous. They were really square boxes, but it was a company who committed themselves to evolving and growing.
Yeah.
And for them to make the investment to bring all these engineers from different companies, especially the BMW M-Line chief, and put them in that factory, in that development site at the Nürburgring was huge. So when I was studying the car to buy it, I looked at all these things and the technology behind it. And I think it was one of the best investments I made in a long time. And it wasn't very expensive compared to like a Civic Type R.
Because you're buying the suspension, not the name.
I'm buying the performance and not the name.
Yeah.
I'm buying because the car's not very flashy. And it doesn't have red suede seats like some other cars out there. And it doesn't have, lights on the mirrors, and it doesn't have, heated seats. No, I bought a car for the performance.
Hey, my truck has about 12 inches of suspension travel. How many inches of suspension travel is typical on the BMWs that you work on?
It all depends on the chassis and the weight that they're carrying. So yeah, it's not very much. We don't travel more than 3-4 inches total.
So from top to bottom,
a full stroke. Yeah.
Okay.
And those strokes we count, and we analyze the amount of strokes per lap per corner.
Yeah. So for our audience, we're talking about if you have a car and your wheels moving up and down, what is the total distance it can move up and down?
That's called a suspension stroke.
Yeah. So a foot of suspension is insane. That's for off-road trucks.
Yeah. So just to give you an example, on a very flat track, like, I don't want to use Lime Rock, but Lime Rock not very bumpy. So we call them suspension events. We see, let's say out of any given corner in the car, we see, let's say within a lap, we see 700 events. When we go to a bumpy track like Sebring, we're looking at 1,800 events per lap in one corner of the car. So
event is a bounce of your up and down?
Right. So we need to look at that when we're designing stuff is, can that strut assembly withstand that for 12 hours? Mm-hmm. Can the suspension withstand that? Can the material withstand that for 12 hours? And we do extensive testing on the suspension dyno machine for that. We put the suspension to the test.
It's exciting.
Just for that purpose.
Yeah. Do you think, this is a silly question, do you think you could describe the major car manufacturers, Honda, Toyota, Nissan, in one or two sentences, describe their suspension? The characteristics or the suspension.
Very similar. Japanese manufacturers designed very similarly. Unless...
Yeah, but Hondas feel different though, right? Hondas feel more go-karty?
They do, but it all comes to cost of production of the car. So, and also who is involved? The new Supra, right? We all know that BMW was heavily involved in that. It's basically BMW with the Toyota badging on it, right? Mm-hmm. So the suspension of that is going to feel different. It was developed by someone else. So that also plays a role. But Japanese designers and manufacturers manufacture pretty much the same way, especially since like the mid-90s, where Honda, Toyota, Nissan, Mitsubishi were pretty much putting out very similar designs and suspension structure. Just the cars look a little differently.
Wow,
and
so you almost break it down to just country, huh?
Pretty much.
Like, no, Nissans are French now.
Well, yeah, that too. But then you had the Mitsubishi involvement with Chrysler back in the day, where you had the Diamond Star car, right? And then Chrysler's like, well, let's put some of our flavor in. And they're like, no, this is going to be an Eclipse. You want to put your badge on it, we'll call it that. Done. But now you have more lenient stuff, like that BMW partnership with Toyota. Then you have that Toyota partnership with Subaru, with the FRS and the BRZ, right? Mm-hmm. So they're collaborating more than just simply putting a different badge on the car like they did in the 90s. And good technology has come out of that. The new GR86, I think is going to be a great car. It's an FRS with a better motor. Good collaboration there between Subaru and Toyota. I think it's good, but it still has a Toyota flavor, even though the rear suspension is a Subaru. But it still has a Toyota design from back in the day. They never stopped designing the same way. Yeah.
My old Dodge Neon had a Mitsubishi motor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, that Chrysler Mitsubishi partnership from back in the day. Toyota had that partnership too with GM back in the day, or the Geo Metros. Oh God. There were Corollas with GM badging on it, right? So all those partnerships came from that, but design ideas came from those partnerships too.
The Geo Metro was a Corolla?
Was it a Tercel?
That's a Corolla. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not a Tercel?
You had the Prism, you had the Geo Prism, and the Geo Metro. No, and the Prism was a Corolla, I believe, and the Metro was a little smaller.
Oh, okay.
But those came from, and they had Toyota engines. Because they're like, GM is like, we need a fuel-efficient Econobox, but we want to call it GM. We want to call it Geo.
We don't know how to make small compact.
We don't know how to make small compact cars. And Toyota's like, here, take our engines, whatever, and just put your badge on it or whatever. And then when you went buy parts, you can interchange with Corolla parts, with Tercel parts and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it seems like Japanese car manufacturers are much less hesitant to cooperate with each other. Like you'll see crossovers with Yamaha, Suzuki,
right,
using engines and
that's always been the case since the late 80s. Yeah. Popular example is the Corolla FX16, 87, 88 that I had. It was a Yamaha design head with incredible amount of flow, way ahead of its time, and had a Lotus design suspension on a Toyota body. All these manufacturers working together to create this amazing machine that was way ahead of its time. Suspension-wise, engine-wise, head flow-wise, but it's because Yamaha is like, hey, I'll help you guys. And Lotus is like, we know suspension, we know chassis. Let's put this into this car. The whole Hashiroku had the same, Yamaha head and intake manifolds and things like that because of partnerships with Toyota.
Would you say Mercedes and BMWs have similar-ish suspension, or if you generalize
European designers design it almost the same way. Audi, Volkswagen, and now Porsche, same company. BMW, Mercedes, they design very similar.
No, but aren't the Mercedes suspensions snobbier?
They are. Again, it comes down to the production of the vehicle. They spend more money on their suspension, and they charge more for their cars. They use more expensive materials, but at the same time, their pickup points and design, articulation, and all that is very similar in European. So you can separate it by region, and then U.S. manufacturers manufacture a lot of similar type vehicles. Ford, GM, Dodge. They design. You look at their trucks; they look almost exactly the same, right? And they have kind of the same characteristics. You can almost separate it by region.
Would you, if you had to say pick one country that's a head and shoulders best at suspension, which country would you pick?
Germans, for sure, and not because of BMW, it's because their suspension design and just the ability to put suspension properly in their car is just fantastic. Is ahead of the game.
Are they more complex and more expensive suspensions?
They are.
Is there a point where a regular driver says, I don't need this much performance?
Absolutely. And that's what I'm there to do, to coach him and educate him.
Or actually, so that there's a similar question I was been thinking about is, do you think the common car to some degree is over-engineered? We kind of touched on the idea where when it has if someone's in your blind spot, a light comes up. So a lot of the cars are made so well for us to be stupid.
It's over-engineered. That's exactly the way to describe them. They're over-engineered. So the suspension that is on your average Camry, you say, well, it can hold the weight of the Camry, right? But it's also over-engineered to know that some idiot out there is going to overload the trunk when they go with the family trip. They're going to put the kids in the back. They're going to put a roof rack on it with extra luggage, and the car's going to sit on the ground as slow as it goes, right? The suspension is designed for that because they know that they had to make it idiot-proof, right? It goes back to design and engineering, idiot-proof, right?
Hey, remember that time we loaded water balloons?
I shouldn't. I don't want to hear about this.
It's back of the old Neon. We had filled the trunk with water balloons. We were taking them to a park.
Okay.
And we figured we'd pre-fill the balloons.
Was the Neon squatting pretty good?
Oh, yeah. It was ass down, yeah.
Right. And you're going to put your cooler out there and your barbecue stuff for your weekend, right? Manufacturers know this. So they're not just going to design the suspension to hold the weight of the car. They know there's going to be a large family that does not fit in this Camry. They're going to put 7 kids in the back, plus the grandma, plus all the luggage and the roof rack. And they're going to want to tow with it, right? Because people go to extremes, right?
Somebody's going to steal 17 bowling balls.
Right. But also early wear and tear on cars comes from that, from people not understanding that there's limitations to stuff.
Yeah. Someone once told me before, and I used to agree with it. Now talking with you, I think it changed my mind.
I feel special. Hello.
You ruined it for him.
Like picking parts for my S2000, what to do with it, where to put the $2,400 and whatnot. I had a friend that was saying, well, work on the suspension first. You could always add horsepower. And then, but now then kind of some of the things you're saying, you got to really focus your car. Cause I mean, you could add some suspension, but then all of a sudden if you decide to go, if you could go 2,000 horsepower on my S2000, that suspension that I built the first time probably wouldn't. Okay. So
you always build vehicles from the ground up. Anytime I start a class in college, I ask my students, what is the most important component in a car?
The driver,
the engine, the transmission. It has to be
budget.
Strong. Tires.
Oh,
it's what's keeping you on the road. It's what's putting those 1,000 horsepower to the ground, right? It's what's creating that friction, right, to keep you on the road. So when we're building race cars, and when you build your own personal vehicle for performance purposes, start from the ground up. You have your suspension, you have your brakes. Please put brakes in there. You have your tires, your brakes, your suspension, and you slowly work your way up, right?
Okay.
So knowing that eventually you're going to put 700 horsepower under the hood, you already have the foundation. Always build a car for performance from the ground up. But a lot of people fail for that because the later generations, and I don't want to say millennials, but sure, why not? They're power hungry. because what they see in the movies and the way they see on TV. So you don't see them buying a brake kit for their car. They're going to put that intercooler on first. They want the big turbo conversion, right? Yeah. They want the big throttle body. They want to up the boost, right? Power hungry generation is what changed that. In the past, we used to design differently. We used to design from the ground up. Now you give a kid a key to a brand new 2022 Subaru Impreza, WRX or STI, whatever they call these days. They're not going to improve the brakes or the suspension. Straight to the turbo, right? More power, right? So that has also changed the aftermarket performance industry, where you open a website to any vendor or any supplier, the first thing you see is power adders, right? Because that's what people are buying first. They don't care about tires or wheels.
It's funny. The only real upgrade I have on the Raptor is a high end rotors and pads.
There you go. You do a lot of towing with it? No. Well, now you have your safety taken care of, right? Yeah.
Well, they're drilled and slotted. It's fun.
Well, there you go. What good is all that horsepower if you can't stop it? Or if you can't put it to the ground with a good set of tires and wheels, or with a good suspension, right?
Yeah, I had a friend who he dropped a supercharger in his S2000, and then he was like, "Yeah, it just doesn't feel right." And then I asked him, "What tires you got on there?" He said, "All seasons." I was like, "Oh, I think that's your mistake, first off." But he didn't. Well, it doesn't matter. He didn't believe me. I'm like, that you should.
Those are fine.
If you're gonna get more horsepower, you probably need to get something that can handle it.
It's the different generation, different times, different culture, where the car culture is not what it used to be. Now it's all power, power, power. I'm gonna beat you from a dead go at a traffic light. Because that's what's popular, right?
Yeah.
You're going to see that guy, you're going to rev on him, and you're going to go. So you need the power for that. You don't care about stopping it. So you're in a street race, and then you're doing 100, and then you realize your brakes are not there. Sorry, different times that we're living, and different technology, and putting power behind the car is what everyone is seeking these days.
Do you have?
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh. Are electric cars cheating?
No, not at all. It's technology at the end of the day. And they are using it to the max. They are putting some amazing equipment out there, and reliability is getting even better. And why not? We have to evolve sooner or later. The internal combustion engine has to evolve, and most manufacturers are committing to full electric, whether it's a Toyota, a Honda, or a Ford. They're committing to full electric by 2025.
Yeah, Volvo's jumping out the gate.
Yeah.
What change or to that, kind of connected with that, what changes do you see in suspension because I'm guessing the weight distribution is different?
Of course, where the batteries sit and how heavy these electrical motors are, where you need to position the driver to, for those batteries to have take place. Yeah, suspension plays a big role, and they're becoming more dynamic and more electronically controlled, because the weight of the car is balanced differently than an internal combustion engine that just sits in the front, right? And if you have a rear-wheel drive car, you have your drive shaft and you have your rear differential, or your front-wheel drive car, where a lot of the weight, 60% is in the front. With an electric car, it's a whole lot different. And what they're bringing in is a lot of electronic control suspension to balance out this weight better. So as the car is cornering, the suspension is adjusting to these different loads, where the center of gravity on an electric car is completely different from an internal combustion engine car.
Okay, so when I get my wide body Countach, I got to come to you to adjust the suspension.
Absolutely. Yeah, bring it. I would love to work on it. I work on all kinds. Now that I look back, I work on all kinds of cars, and it's pretty fun. It's very challenging, but at the end of the day, is math and physics. I'm still have a mass in motion that I need to keep under control.
Nice.
But a lot of technicians in town don't know that. They don't have the education for that. They don't have the knowledge. But they'll sell you pretty pictures. They're like, "Well, I worked on a Lambo last week. You didn't know what you were doing." And I run into that a lot in town, where they feel like they are competition. They're not. They don't understand the science behind the suspension design and engineering. So we see that a lot. And there's some competition out there, but
back to that countries suspension by country. What do you think about Italy with is that Lamborghini and Ferrari? What's their suspension like, or your opinion?
We leave Fiat out of that equation.
Same company. They designed the European way, just like BMW and Mercedes, right? They designed the same European way. They are just at a different level. And what sets them aside is the materials they use and the budget, at a different level. So a Ferrari with a full carbon fiber, monocoque, it's going to be different than your regular Mercedes CL or whatever, so those companies are at a different level when it comes to that, but at the end of the day, they follow the same European design structures that other European designers come up with.
Isometric.
So the Hyundai, is that like the best budget?
Bang for your buck.
Yeah, I want to say budget or bang for the buck. So
the Challenger also has great suspension for a very heavy car.
I don't know about that. I'm not familiar with it, but I don't think it does really well. It just looks like a giant beast,
a tank.
The reason why I went Hyundai is because I always been a front-wheel drive hatchback guy from my early beginnings.
Yeah,
that Toyota that I was talking about, the Corolla FX16 hatchback front-wheel drive. A lot of guys are rear-wheel drive all their life. I respect that. A lot of guys are Evo forever, right? All-wheel drive, Subaru, all-wheel drive. I respect that too.
The C5 Corvette is also a hatchback.
You want to call it a hatchback? Yes. That's a stretch, man. That's a stretch.
Serious?
Yeah, I think it's labeled as a hatch,
the window
right?
comes up with the trunk.
Well, yeah, I guess it's called a hatchback. Yeah, sure, why not? Let's go with that. But it was not front-wheel drive.
No.
So I always been, since I got into cars, I always been a front-wheel drive 4-cylinder car guy, where the 4-cylinder is very efficient and it does everything really well. So when it came time to look for the latest hot hatch that was best bang for the buck, had the technology without the flash, like a GTI, that's very expensive because it has plaid seats, or the red suede seats in the Civic Type R, the Hyundai made the most sense.
Wait, what boring color is your Honda Velostar?
It's about as white as it gets. You
have stickers all over it?
It's boring white. No stickers. No stickers. It's just a regular Veloster out there. It just looks a little different because of the N-line thing that they came up with a little more aggressive body styling and things like that. But it made the most sense money-wise, performance-wise, and technology-wise that I was looking for at the time. 5 years from now, maybe I'm going to be looking for a different type of hatch. Whatever's in the market, I'm going to make the same decision where it makes money financially and it also makes sense in what technology I'm looking for at the time.
Right. On the Hyundai thing, I thought I heard also that they also hired the chief designer from BMW.
Yeah.
So I heard that a lot of their cars, I forget what it was from, I don't remember the year, maybe 2010-ish or something. So a lot of the design started to get better and better. And when I look at Hyundai nowadays, I'm like, damn, they really did do a pretty decent job.
And for this particular N line that they have now, their performance line, they brought the M BMW guy in. They paid him an insane amount of money. They built a factory at the Nürburgring, a development site, just for that. So they were very committed, and that's one of the things that drove me to buying that car. And it's always a manufacturer that always intrigued me with their efficiency. And that 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty, man, you can't beat it. I actually been tracking the car a lot. I've been to a lot of track events. I drive it at speed on track. It was designed for that.
Yeah.
And as long as I don't do crazy modifications to it, if I break it, it's covered under the warranty. You can't beat that. So here's a key to a car that you can beat up on track and will still replace your engine transmission if something breaks.
Not until they watch this podcast.
Oh no, they'll warranty it.
They'll figure out some legal reasons.
Yeah, unless I do, let's say, a bigger turbo or upgrade the head or do like pistons and stuff or internals. Then they're gonna say you're crazy. But if I keep everything pretty much factory, they will cover it. So how amazing is to put that stamp of approval behind your product? I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So we got some racetracks around Vegas. We got the Vegas Speedway.
Oh, jeez.
We got Speed Vegas down south.
Okay.
We got Spring Mountain out in Pahrump. Did I miss any big tracks that?
I don't think we have anything else, and I don't even count Speed Vegas because that's
a bullshit track.
It's not that. It's just it's a track that is for business and business only. Where you have Speed Vegas now married to what is that called? Not Dream Racing, but Exotics Racing. So they merged and they run a business out of it. You can rent the track for the weekend and do a couple laps if you want, but it's not, in my eyes, it's not a pro track like Spring Mountain. It's not a track that is dedicated for racing and racing only. You couldn't hold an actual event there for motorsports.
Can you take your Velostar out on Spring Mountain?
Absolutely. I have taken it already, and I've taken it over to the Speedway as well, the outside road course. I've done it twice already there. And I've been to California, different tracks with it.
Willow Springs?
I've been to Willow Springs, I've been to Buttonwillow with it, and I've been to Laguna Seca with it too.
Okay.
And I only had it for 2 years. So I've been around with the thing for a while, but I'm enjoying it. Yeah.
How many sets of tires you burn through?
I'm only in my second set of track tires.
Ah.
The car is very efficient on tires. The set of tires that I was using last, I was pretty impressed with the fact that I already had them for 4 track days, and they still have the logo on the center thread. And obviously I have it set up properly. The suspension, I worked on the angles myself. I know what the car needs, and it's very efficient. It's really, really efficient on tires to the point where I can stretch a set for a very long time.
Don't you want to burn through your tires so you're carrying less weight around the track?
And no, you want the tire to be on the ground, and you want the friction to be constant. And these tires are really good for this car. They have been pretty solid. So yeah, I don't want to burn all the rubber to be lighter on the track. No, I'll do that with fuel management. You know, I carry just the right amount of fuel. I take some stuff out of the car, but I was at that point in my life where I needed a car that I can commute with every once in a while, but also take to the track. And that's where this car came from. Before, it came from a track from a Honda Civic that was a full-blown race car. And anytime I wanted to take it somewhere, I had to tow it. And I had a truck back then, but things change.
Did you have a dually with a trailer?
No, I had a Nissan Titan because the Civic only weighed about 2,000 pounds. It was a super light race car, nice, powerful motor, suspension, and all that. And we were doing time attack events and things like that. But it was kind of a pain in the rear end because I had to tow it anywhere I went. Hey, and I'm done towing. Now I just want to drive to the event and come back home.
Can you explain high-octane gasoline to Americans? Because I love my car and I want to spend more. I want to give it the good gas because it's a nice car and it's new. And I need to give it the big 91 octane because that's good for my car. It's cleaner, right?
Right. And there's also the rate at which it burns too. And it will run cleaner that way, the high-octane fuel. And then also the lower-octane fuel does have a lot of contaminants that will ruin an engine over time.
Oh, really? I thought it was all bullshit.
No, it's true.
Oh, I thought octane was just the ignition point, right?
No, it's going to be also, the ignition point and also the burn rate, how long it takes for it to burn. So what happens with the cheaper fuels is that they burn a little bit slower, but they do also, the byproduct of that is a lot of contaminants. So you'll see, when we study oil in a lab, we study oil from a car that's been using cheaper fuels compared to one that's been using high octane fuels, and you'll see the difference in.
I thought it had to do with the detergents in the.
It has to do with. I'm good, thank you.
It has to do. So I got a 5.4 liter Ford V8.
The 5.4 liter, I love that thing.
Do I need to put high octane gas in this?
I would put nothing but higher than mid grade. Unless it's a flex fuel.
So correct me if I'm wrong. I've researched that. So say if the manufacturer has designed that engine for 87 octane, they have designed it for that. If you try to use 89 or 91, there's a chance that it's going to throw off I don't remember the exact wording. Okay. It's going to throw off the engine. It's not going to work at its
not optimal.
Yeah, it's not optimal.
Actually, when manufacturers design, let's say a vehicle for 87, right? And you happen to put 91 in it because you feel like it's cleaner, it's going to last longer, it's going to be better for your engine. In the algorithm for the engine management, there's room for all of that to understand different detonation points, different combustion points, different flash points.
There's a computer managing your engine performance.
Correct. Yeah. So in the engine management, all that is built into the algorithm. So yeah, they say, well, it's designed for 87, but one day you decide to throw 86 because a certain state that you travel to put 86 only has 86, or you put 93 because a certain state that you travel to has 93. All that is built in already.
Sometimes you go to different altitudes, they got different octane.
Exactly. And manufacturers design, again, over-engineer what we were talking about earlier for that, because they know there's different availability, especially in North America, for fuels. So that is all built in the algorithm. So if you put 91 in it and your flash point is a little different, your ignition is automatically going to adjust for that. And your injector pulse rate is going to adjust for that too, because it's already built in. So don't be afraid to switch your fuels. But yeah,
No, but I got a 2-year-old Corolla. Is it going to do me any good to spend all this extra money on 91 octane?
In the long run, yes. It's gonna help you. Yeah. Than using the cheaper fuels.
Okay.
Yeah. If you want to use the cheaper ones, please go ahead. But from what we have seen, research-wise, yeah, it does affect your oil. It does affect other components to the point where the oil breaks down earlier because of the contaminants and things like that. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff behind fuels. And you mentioned altitude.
Yeah,
we had a particular problem with Toyota Land Cruisers from the late 90s, early 2000s, where anytime they went to a different altitude, it would throw a check engine light.
Yeah.
And then Toyota realized that in the algorithm for altitude changes, they did not build enough range to understand higher altitudes, like going to Mount Charleston. So I had a lot of clients who went from Vegas to Mount Charleston for the weekend, and they came back with a check engine light. Oh, wow. And they're saying, no, this brand new car is horrible, and I'm going to have to trade it in. No. Then Toyota realized that a quick software upgrade, there was out there someone programming, right? And doing coding.
Some kind of engineer.
Wink, wink, right? This discovered that, it was just a range in the algorithm for altitude that was not wide enough. Simple, back to the dealership, recall letter that you got in the mail, took it back there, a 30-minute flash upgrade took care of it, done.
A lot of people don't know Las Vegas is at about 2,000 feet altitude.
Correct.
The city. And then Mount Charleston over here, I think they're 4,000?
There's a point where it's also 6,000, like the highest peak.
Okay.
So it's pretty high.
Okay.
Yeah. And the vehicle will make it no problem because it will fall into a fail-safe, right? Yeah. Where it says, well, I don't understand the parameter. The designers in the algorithm also put a fail-safe to where it's like, okay, if, and then conditions, right?
Yeah.
If this doesn't work, then go this way, and so on and so on. But yeah, it was a simple software upgrade. And you're going to see a lot of that, and we've been seeing a lot of that in vehicle design, where a simple flash will solve a lot of problems in a car.
Exciting.
Would be some cheap or budget-minded fun things to do in cars? Like I'm thinking of, so there's that Top Gear episode. It's a long time ago. I forget what season. The three guy, Jeremy, May, and whatever.
It's an auto racing show where they have all those really smart guys on there.
Yeah, exactly.
They did one where they gave themselves a $2,000 budget, and then they did like a rally course, a small one, and that looked so much fun. From your experience of all working on cars, is there something that
is there some dirt cheap rally racing around that we can do,
or dirt cheap fun?
Actually, at Speed Vegas, they have a rally school too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, a friend of mine used to own a rally place, and I don't know if he still names it the same thing, but Speed Vegas brought him in and absorbed that business, and they have a dirt track on the back where you can take a car in a rally course. So you guys should look into that too. So shout out to Ray. Hey, Ray.
Hey, Ray. I seen they have those Baja Trophy looking trucks. Is you talking about that, or is it something else?
And there's also he had at one point he had a couple Subarus, and he had a Chevy Aveo that I prepped for him when he was doing NASA Rally. And I don't know if he still has it. I don't know if he has phased out those vehicles or not, but I know that business of rally school is there now too at Speed Vegas. So they continue to absorb more people and more businesses. But as far as cheap upgrades go,
it's cheap fun.
Like cheap fun. Go with an older body car. Slap on an engine on there and some set of tires. Depends on what you want to do with it. Whether it's rally, drift, right? When have you seen like a brand new drift car out there that is not all dinged up and battered, right? It's usually those old 240s, right? Those old Corollas, right? Here, if you want to just do it for fun, for cheap, take an old body, put a decent engine in it, throw some tires on it, go have fun. Whether it's rally, road course, or drift, just do the cheap route and have fun. You're not going to buy a brand new Ferrari to just go drifting, right?
What are some of the things
that you could?
What are the things you enjoy? So it sounds like you like to track your Hyundai now.
Right.
Wait, if you're drifting, do you buy non-sticky tires?
Yeah, you buy all seasons.
Okay.
The cheapest you can get. Yeah,
those are going to burn them
like Nanking 001s. And they're like $70 a tire. Buy those because you're going to burn through them. They're not going to stick really well. They're going to allow you to slide if you're in a really low horsepower car.
Yeah,
they'll allow you to slide and then just have fun. Burn them up. I'd rather burn through a cheap set of Nankings for $70 each than a set of Yokohamas, for $180 each.
Yeah.
We need drift tires that focus on the smell of burning rubber.
There were some that were colorful in the past. They had this dye in that they were burned and they would change different colors. Why? Just go burn the cheap set.
You're putting on a show.
Yeah, you're putting on a show. But yeah,
everybody's watching me.
There's a lot of cheap ways to go racing and have fun at high rates of speed and in controlled environments too. Like a lot of folks in town do autocross. I just did an event 2 weeks ago in the Hyundai. I put the track tires on and went autocrossing. Do that. It's cheap. You can do it with your family car, with your sedan.
Yeah.
Bring it with the factory tires. Who cares? Go beat up on it in a small control environment. So shout out to my SCCA Las Vegas region folks. Good people out there.
My Raptor has Walmart tires on it.
Best tires ever. Walmart.
I think they're Sumitomo Encounters. If you want some fantastic.
Haven't you noticed that the cheapest tires always have the funny names?
Yeah.
Like Sumitomo Encounters,
Yeah. You know what? I'm surprised because I bought that thing like 3-4 years ago and it just came with those on there because whoever didn't care. Yeah. But surprisingly, I have no problem with them on road or off. So it's weird.
It was like Nanking Love Trail, something like that. They have the funniest names, but it's
I've been down the Love Trail.
The cheap tire route is always the way to go when you're trying to just do some sort of racing and you're an amateur and you just want to do it for fun. Don't spend too much money. Just buy the cheapest tire and off the shelf suspension and go have fun. Get the seat time because it doesn't matter how you get it. If it's an expensive car, a cheap car with cheap tires. With the Sumitomos, whatever they call what's it called again?
Encounter. Yeah.
Encounter. I love that name. The Sumitomo Encounters. Just get the seat time.
Yeah.
And whether it's autocross, track days, endurance racing, drifting, get the seat time, no matter what it is. That's at the end, that should be your goal.
Got any fun memories from your races?
Oh man, we had
highlights.
We had one locally that was a 13-hour race, and actually it was a 14-hour race that was split in 2 days.
Wow.
So at the end of day one, which was Saturday, we needed to bring in the car, park it, no one could touch it overnight, and then the next day you get back into the car and you resume the race. So it was a 14-hour race split in 2 days. By the end of the first day, I was the last driver in, and the alternator gave out. So the battery was dying. And it was a race that was going to end at sundown. So the lights needed to be on. And this thing, every time it would step on the brake, and the rear brake lights will come on, they will draw whatever power was left from the battery, and it will kill the engine.
Yeah.
So for a good 10, 12 minutes towards the end of the race, I had to e-brake my way around the track because coming in was going to ruin our position. Gently use the brake if I had to, e-brake my way around it, and every time I would tap the brake, the dashboard would go dead, the engine would die, I would clutch kick it, restart it, put it in gear, and go around. And it was right here at the outside road course. And my teammates can tell you that's exactly what I did. I kept the car alive for the last 12 minutes by e-braking my way around the track. And they were radioing me. It's like, hey, your brake lights are not working. I said, I got no battery left. and wow. I couldn't use the headlights, and people were trying to pass me. And it was a really difficult but that knowledge of cars, that mentality kicked in. I was like, I got to do something to solve this issue without bringing the car in and losing our position. And that was the best thing I can do. Just e-brake the heck out of it, work with the transmission, trying to keep the engine alive, lightly tap on the brake, and just steer my way to the end. And then we brought it in, and we kept our position.
So for people that don't understand cars, the alternator is on your engine, and your engine's spinning the alternator to send an electrical charge to your battery.
Correct, to keep your battery charged, right.
And you need electricity to fire your spark plugs?
You need that. So the engine, if you don't have the electricity to fire the spark plugs, the engine goes dead. You need electricity to turn on your lights, right? You need electricity to turn on all the other components in the car. So if your battery goes dead, everyone experiences it. Even if you don't know cars, you come out in the morning, you turn the key, and it goes, and it doesn't start. Mm-hmm. Imagine the same scenario, but at the end of a race where you're trying to maintain your position and you're trying to win, but the car is dying on you mid-track, and you have to improvise. And that's what makes racing fun.
But I think it's your complete understanding of all the systems. Where
exactly.
If somebody was just a great driver.
Absolutely. If I didn't know what an alternator was, they'll be like, hey, the car just shut up. I'm going to pull over. No, we're not pulling over. We're going to finish these 12 minutes any which way we can. And I'm fortunate that I think I was, I think it was fortunate that I was in the car last to where I can make it go that long for those 12 minutes or 14 minutes that we needed to make it to the finish line and maintain our position. So that's one of the fun experiences that I had behind the wheel because it challenged me. I had to improvise.
Oh, this is at the end of the 14 hours?
It was at the end of the first 7.
Okay.
So the next day,
how do you start?
We had no battery. We had to push the car off the pin, clutch kick it again so we didn't lose the starting position, bring it in, put a new battery and alternator, and then go back out.
So you were able to pit stop right out the gate.
Right. But if we would have stayed in and not started the race, we would have lost the position completely. Mm-hmm. So at least we took the green flag, brought it in, made the changes, and then went back out. And I think we had a pretty good finish that day.
With the e-brake, you're able to slow down enough?
No, it was e-brake, brake pedal combination. But I had to modulate that brake pedal a little bit.
Wow.
So those lights would not stay on for so long. Because it was a Mazda with like 4 giant bulbs. The worst car for brake lights because they were huge. And every time they would turn on, all the electricity would go wow, 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 wow.
The back looks like the Millennium Falcon.
and that's the failure that we had. And I really enjoyed that part because and as drivers, especially when we do endurance racing, you're adapting every second because the car is evolving under you. The grip level is changing, the brake distances are changing, the power is changing, the fuel load is changing, you're carrying less weight as you go, and the dynamics of turning are changing. So when you do endurance racing and you're in the seat for 2.5 hours, you're evolving every second. And
your ass is evolving into numbness.
and as a driver, you have to stay focused the entire time, and it drains you out like coding and stuff. Like after 4 hours, your brain shuts down.
Oh yeah.
After 2.5 hours in a car, 3 hours in a car, I'm ready to go to sleep.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to double stint because you may have a sick driver or a driver who's not ready to come in, and then you're out there for 2.5 hours again. Oh yeah, it wears you out. So you need to be in really good physical shape, or at least some decent shape.
So don't start with endurance driving.
Start with short races. Sprint racing is the way to go. Start with those 30 minutes, 20-minute sessions, 40 minutes, and slowly work your way towards endurance because it does take a lot of you mentally and physically.
Yeah. Jumping back to that suspension of Mercedes and BMW and the snobby comment that Emmett mentioned, is there?
I knew he was going to say that.
Is a Mercedes?
Is it literally $40,000 better?
I guess that was kind of where I'm going with that.
I don't know Mercedes that well, but knowing BMW, price-wise, yes, if you're buying in Germany. But when you bring it to the States and you have to get all those import fees taken care of, now the price balloons. But the cost of manufacturing for the type of product that they're putting out there, I can imagine Mercedes is the same way. Yes, you're really getting your money's worth. But remember, you're getting a car that came from Germany. All those fees, importing fees. And the tariffs are getting so high these days because domestic product is not selling. So what do? They raise the tariffs. They raise the cost of importing these vehicles. So a Mercedes is going to cost you $80,000, where a Ford, GM, Dodge will be a whole lot cheaper. That is a way to control the market too. We don't control that. The government does.
Yeah.
So that's why you pay more for a Mercedes. But if you were to buy it in Germany, you're getting your money's worth. Absolutely.
Is the suspension in the Mercedes tuned in a way for that comfort where is the hardware still good enough where if you were just to take a Mercedes and retune it for a track, could that Mercedes do really well because
to some extent, especially the sport models where they have that comfort, really luxurious feeling when you're driving the car, very quiet, but a simple touch of a button turns this car into a stiff track monster where it can handle high cornering loads. That's where the electronics are coming in. And that ability to control that valving electronically and that stroke to where, you want to corner a little bit harder? We can do that too. So cars are getting so versatile, or have gotten so versatile with the assistance of electronics, even down to suspension, to where they're so good at both levels. And then you just press a button again, and now you're in comfort mode, where the suspension almost floats in the air, and you're taking a long trip out of Vegas, and you feel like you're just floating. Cars can do that now. Things that 20 years ago they couldn't do. They couldn't handle the best of both worlds. You have that now.
Wow.
My truck floats on the road, and then it floats off road better.
You've seen videos. The owner of the shop that I work at, he has a Raptor as well.
Yeah. And
I've seen his onboard videos when he's out there on the trails, and it feels like he is out for a Sunday drive.
Yeah.
But the Raptor is out there just going over the humps like it's nothing.
It's fun.
Suspension.
That truck has suspension.
It has that range. But when you're out on the street and you're cruising on the freeway, it doesn't feel like a really off-road machine where you're going to donate a kidney at the end of the day, right? No, it's still pretty comfortable. You can put the family in the back, which is huge. You got a giant back seat, right? Yeah. It can do the best of both worlds. Manufacturers do that now, something they didn't have the capability of doing 20 years ago.
You know what's funny about the Raptor is the first generation Raptor gets terrible gas mileage.
Oh, they do, yeah.
It's like 14 miles a gallon.
Oh, yeah.
Second generation, they put a awesome turbo V6 in it.
Mm-hmm.
It has more
EcoBoost.
Yeah, more horsepower, more torque, and better gas mileage. Usually you got to trade something.
And more towing capacity, too.
Yeah, usually you got to trade something.
Yeah.
There's no trade. Everything's better. Raptor people hate it.
Look at most manufacturers these days. They've gone the turbo route.
Yeah, but they hate it because it sounds like a Turbo 6. It doesn't sound like a big V8.
But you're getting the gas mileage, right?
They don't care. These are people that blew all this money on a ridiculous truck. They weren't trying to.
Right. Yeah. What is that? What is a new Raptor? Let's say a 2019 costing these days? $80,000.
Oh, 80. Yeah, at least. That's if the dealer doesn't jack up.
Thank you. And prices the way they are these days, I would rather buy the fuel efficient one with the turbo V6 because I know I'm going to get some good life out of it.
Oh, dude, I would trade engines in a heartbeat.
And gas prices the way they are right now. Yeah. And manufacturers have gone more of the turbo route, more of the forced induction route, because they can get the best of both worlds. They can get the low end torque, the power when they need it, but they can also make it fuel efficient. So turbos have been huge even for passenger vehicles.
Yeah.
The evolution of the turbo, it's been fantastic.
Okay. Was it like the early 2000s where turbos kind of, you saw it in more in common cars?
Yeah, and they can be tiny little turbos just for you to get that extra performance that you need to get over a steep grade, or if you want punch it, you want to feel that boost, but it's the same car that gave you 40 miles to the gallon before. So manufacturers are using turbo and manifold design for that. To make that efficiency, and you can still get 40 miles to the gallon even though you have a turbo in your car. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful marriage, and turbos are really efficient these days.
My limited knowledge of turbos back then, I forget what car it was. I forget it was Toyota putting a turbo in like a family sedan. It probably wasn't a family sedan, but it was more of a common person's car than someone that wants to spend money on a sports car per se. But I remember back then thinking, I was like, this doesn't seem like it's going to end well. Turbos, they can get very, if the is it the fan, the bearing,
okay,
that could easily, the stress that it's under can easily break, and then therefore everything else in your car kind of not literally blows up.
So reliability and longevity is what you were thinking.
That's what I thought back then. But I mean, since the turbos in the cars, I haven't heard any issues.
And for them to make it efficient to fight that, manufacturers are using aftercoolers. So a lot of the newer turbo cars, for example, is you get out of the car, right? You turn the car and you walk away. You lock it down, and you hear a mechanical noise or like a pump noise. There's a pump, or actually sometimes two, pumping coolant through the turbo for that bearing to slow down the temperature dissipation, and also still pumping oil through the system, even though you already walked away, to get those temperatures down and to work and to help the longevity of the turbo bearings and the internals of the turbo. They have gone even that far to work on reliability because turbos run hot. It's totally understandable, right?
Yeah.
And they can cook oil. Manufacturers already figured that one out. And you notice in a lot of the newer turbo cars, they have the aftercoolers. We call them aftercoolers, where there's a pump running coolant. It goes through the radiator. Sometimes a fan still stays on to bring those coolant temperatures down, but slowly. So that temperature ramp up of that bearing inside the turbo, right? The material has a certain tolerance. If you cool it down too fast, you're going to shorten the life of it and you can crack it. So these systems are designed to slowly cool down the temperature, so the material has a lot of time to bring it back to its structure.
You guys sound like a couple of engineering nerds right now.
Oh, yeah. Bring on the pocket protector. I think I may have one in the car right now. It's all about the maintaining the material structure and providing that longevity.
I haven't really paid attention to that technology lately. Back in the day, back in the early 2000s, I remember that was kind of a hot topic for people that wanted to add a turbo to their car to do an aftercooler. But it was spending money on, from what I remember, it was different. You'd had to piece together a system. Right. There wasn't a built together system. Right. Is it different nowadays? Is there any? If
you have a car that doesn't come with it from the factory, you have to piece something together.
But as in like, say the S2000, which doesn't come turbo, is there, well, that's kind of a silly question maybe. Is there more modern cars where you add a turbo and then is the after cooling, is that a common built thing nowadays?
It is now, yeah. It is now, and it's easier to put on and add on if your car doesn't come with a turbo. Yeah, it is. And it's a system, not an intercooler that is running and cooling the compressed air as you're driving. We're talking about after. What happens when you shut off that engine? What do we do with this hot boiling oil or this coolant that is still hot? How do we cool it down to extend the life of this motor and this turbo and these internal components? So manufacturers have really gotten really good at that. And cars that 20 years ago, if you were to put a turbo in it, would have died 6 months later. Now they're lasting 16 years extra. It's amazing.
If you're gonna engineer your own aftercooler on your old S2K, you might as well just LS swap it, and then you're not worried about the turbo.
Well, there you go. But now you have an LS swap that's going to drink. It's going to run about 5 miles to the gallon. So see that compromise there? LS the world. I think there's a T-shirt that says that LS the world.
I got good mileage in that. If you drive it like a grandma,
you drive it like a grandma, and naturally aspirated engines obviously started to phase out little by little because manufacturers saw the benefits of the turbos. Where you could get the best of both worlds. You get the performance, and then you get the fuel efficiency.
Would any thoughts on turbo versus supercharger?
It depends what you really need it for. I like supercharger systems. They just have a limitation, obviously, and turbos do too. But in my eyes, or from what I've experienced, you can do a little more with a turbo than a supercharger. A supercharger is gonna fatigue fairly quickly. So there's arguments for both ends. Also with temperature control and cooling systems having to do with how efficient they can be with a turbo or a supercharger. So there's pros and cons to each, but it really depends what the end product is that you want your car to be.
fast and loud.
Yeah, throw a turbo in it, a big dump exhaust that is about this long, after the header, and that's it. Just run it out the side where the fender is. You make a hole in it, and then just dump it there. And then you do your little two-step. Super Ricer. I just sounded super Ricer, super nerdy right now.
Wait, if you had $1 million budget and you could pick one BMW right now, brand new one?
I like the M4 Competition. I really like that car.
You can buy an M4 Competition. Mm-hmm. So Competition is even faster than an M4?
Is their performance line of the M4. I really like what they've done with the M4. A lot of people don't like any even numbers on BMWs. They're very M1 or M3.
It's a silly reason to not like a car.
But they felt like BMWs with the M2 and the M4s didn't do so well. I feel like they did really well. And it's not cheap, but $1 million budget, you don't need that for an M4 Competition. But I think that would be my top BMW right now. And 6 months from now could be something different.
Not the Z.
I wouldn't do like an i8 or anything like that. No.
Did you like that old Z8? I always like the style of it.
It was okay.
What was wrong? Underpowered?
No, I just don't like the body of it.
You don't like that roadster style?
Yeah, I'm not a big roadster guy.
Gotcha.
So yeah.
What's your thoughts then on the McLaren P1? I really like that car.
I like that car too. Well engineered. I'm a big fan. McLaren just does really well with their cars. They look at so many details when designing a car. They're above and beyond.
I don't know why I was expecting you to say that's overpriced. Don't even ever.
Dog shit.
Yeah, that's
you're paying for a really good car. A really good car. Yeah. I like the Top Gear episode. What it was a McLaren P1, I think it was, and then a LaFerrari, and threw a Porsche in there too.
The tree, they call it the tree. What did they call it?
The Holy Trinity.
Holy Trinity. Yeah.
The McLaren is awesome. I think it's a great car. It does everything really well, and the active aero on it is just out of this world. I'm a big fan of active.
It does race car stuff very well.
Oh yeah. McLaren does. Yeah.
There was for the S2000. There was.
I like how we talk about McLaren and S2000 in the same phrase. Within like 3 minutes, we're talking S2000s, Honda Civics, and McLaren. This is a great podcast. This is pretty
awesome. Welcome to the car show.
There was a company that did. It was I think it was at the top of the coilover.
We've lost a lot of listeners at this point.
At the top of the coilover, and then I guess that's probably
the hat.
Not at the. But it would be under under the frame of the car or the chassis of the car, and then it would do active suspension. So then it would attach to the ECU. You could plug it in, and then if you're going at less than 10 or 15 miles per hour, it'll raise up the car, and then if you go faster, then it'll lower the car. I think it was something.
It's on the McLaren.
It was for the S2000.
Oh,
but
okay.
it was $10,000. It was $10,000.
It was a $10,000 upgrade.
Yeah, and that's not including the coilovers. That's just that piece, the active. I don't know.
Oh. It raises your car when you're driving slow. So
Right. The
speed bump jumper.
The active ride height changer modulation.
Yeah.
Right. Mitsubishi had that in the 3000 GT in 1990.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And they had an active lower chin spoiler that will drop down as you were picking up speed to give you more downforce.
Wow. I used to talk shit about that car. I take it all back. I did not know
3000 GT VR4 was way ahead of its
It
time.
was underpowered, right?
A little bit. That V6 was kind of, but
Probably for the weight.
But it was a really good car.
Was the Dodge Stealth not as good?
No, that still was. That thing was just junk.
It's the same car.
You guys familiar with the Mitsubishi Starion?
No.
Like an early Eclipse type of thing. The Starion was another vehicle that was engineered way ahead of its time. Mitsubishi did some amazing things. Toyota, Honda, not so much. Nissan, again, cars that were like, whoa. The technology that today we say, wow, that's amazing. Variable valve timing, woo, woo. These guys were like, this is so 1988 is sad. They were way ahead of their time. VTEC on Honda. You see a truck now, a Ford, it's like variable VAT timing and variable cam angle. Honda's like, we did that in 88. Don't worry about it. It's cool. Don't worry about it. Technology that, and that's why I like late 80s, early 90s Japanese vehicles so much, because they're all ahead of their time. They have technology that people these days still find themselves in awe about. That was already done.
As a suspension guy, do you like four-wheel steering?
It depends. If the vehicle's heavy enough and long enough, it has a long wheelbase. Yeah, I like four-wheel steering.
Okay.
Who did it well back in the day? Honda Prelude had the SH model. They had a four-wheel steering. Weird as heck.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, I don't think the wheelbase was long enough, but they just threw something out there because that's where Honda was. And I know we lost a lot of listeners, but I think a lot of the nerds at home going, yeah, keep going. I like these guys. These guys are awesome.
I have a suspension boner right now.
Shout out to my fellow nerds out there, because we make the world go around. Like I said, engineers lead the way. Something I learned from a military friend. So a lot of technology that we see today was already developed a long time ago from the Japanese market. A lot of domestic and European markets started catching on late. I love that era of vehicle because of that.
This is probably very subjective, just my memories of the Prelude. Gosh, what was it? I forget, it was a 98 SH all-wheel drive. Was it all-wheel drive?
Four-wheel steering.
Four-wheel steering. Mm-hmm. And then even the Prelude, I want to say it was 92, but there was, when I opened and closed the doors and sat in the car when my friend would drive it, both cars felt solid and they felt like they stuck to the ground oddly. I say oddly because I feel like my memory back then versus my knowledge of cars now and the price point of those Preludes back then,
right?
I wouldn't have expected that.
Well, the Prelude was a giant pig. The Prelude was super heavy.
Oh, so that's what,
that's why it felt solid and stuck to the ground, because the body itself was huge. So you didn't see a lot of people using Preludes for racing.
Yes,
they would yank the engine out of it and then put it in a lightweight Civic for racing, because the Prelude was a really heavy chassis to get to drop weight on. That's why it always felt solid. When the door shut, it had the it had the where it's like, oh, this feels good. I feel secure, right?
Yeah, when I do that to a Civic, it's like it feels like a hollow closing, a hollow door closing.
Because the Prelude was a massive machine. It weighed a ton.
That's interesting, because my memory back then
it was heavy.
I didn't know that fact. So I thought about it. I was like, man, this car feels like it could stick to the road and it feels solid. Why aren't other cars designed like that? But now because it was a giant, log. It was a huge machine. And even the Accord felt lighter than it felt more nimble. Like you put a 98 Accord with a two-door with a V6, for example, right? It felt more nimble than in a Prelude. But the Prelude felt more secure, more stuck to the road. Okay. Yeah. I used to have a 96 Accord, so yes.
Yeah. They had a V6 3.0 back then.
Yeah.
The two-door did.
Okay, I think last question before we go to the final question.
Except his suspension broke and he turned it upside down. I put it in the rail.
I was driving on the freeway. I was just just lane change. I think that I'm guessing the suspension modifications probably made other pieces weak or something, but the wheel actually broke. I think it broke in. It just on the freeway.
They have very weak lower ball joints because they couldn't take the weight of the car.
You're too fat.
So, I'll never be a racer.
So if you were a 350-pound guy, that ball joint was going to hold for very long.
Huh.
So they had ball joint issues on the front, and then they had lateral link problems on the rear.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
There you go. It wasn't your fault.
Yeah.
I actually a few years. I think it was
It's therapy.
All the nerds are going home going,
Thank you,
yes,
Eladio.
that's what happened to my prelude. Yeah. No, sorry.
A few years after that, I mentioned it to one coworker, and that coworker's like, "Yeah, I want to do a recall, and a recall in the car, or get lawyers, get a recall. I want to sue Honda. Do you have information about your accident?" I'm like, I don't know.
I still love Honda.
They were very heavy machines, and I still love Honda too. And even though I went to a different platform, I still love what Honda has done with their cars and their efficiency and their technology. They always wanted to stay ahead. They had some periods where they were like kind of quiet. Unlike Toyota. Toyota went full econo passenger fun. Mm-hmm. And then they said, well, this is a
passenger fun?
Yeah, passenger or driver fun, to not performance-wise, to where they're like, well, this is a TRD edition, but it's just added a couple flares and some alloy wheels, right?
Yeah.
So Toyota went mellow. And then they brought out the Supra because they realized they were falling out of the market of the performance stuff. But they couldn't do it alone. They had to bring BMW in. Wow. While other manufacturers like Honda, they're like, yeah, we still keep our Civics. We're going to downsize a little bit to the Fit, but then we'll bring the Type R back. And Nissan has always stayed with the Z, right? And then Mitsubishi just disappeared from the map. Poor guys. And then Subaru has always
the Outlander still is a fine vehicle. If you can't afford a Subaru,
they always come back and they tell you, well, we make other things. We'll make air conditioners and big trucks. Yes, thank you, Mitsubishi. See you later. Where Subaru has pretty much remained the constant, where they still have their performance line, but they have those fun, off a trail type of Outbacks and type of thing, where they cater to everyone. So that has been one of those companies that have remained constant and never had that dip, So shout out to Subaru for that. Good job for them.
Okay, I think the last question is the Lexus.
The last question.
The LFA?
Yeah, LFA. LFA. I don't know enough about it. I've tried to do some research. So I'm just going off of Jeremy Clarkson on Top Gear. He said it's his all-time favorite car.
It is a great car.
What is so great about it?
The chassis itself. The way that they did not the body or the panels, the chassis itself, what they did for the structure of the car, that put it above and beyond anything. And it has great power as well, great looks too. But it was a chassis itself.
What was it about the chassis? Like, is it just super low? Is it?
It was well built as far as the shape of it and also how lightweight it was. And it really made the entire car. The car felt really solid, easy to drive, very responsive. And it was just a blast to drive. And it's just how Toyota did that chassis.
Sounds like you've driven one.
Yes, I have. And it was heck of fun.
Wow.
I wish I could have driven it faster, but it wasn't mine, obviously. And I was afraid of,
there's not a lot of them
wrapping it around a tree.
Yeah,
exactly. But it was a blast. And it was, doing the research and understanding the car, it was all about that chassis.
Wow.
That chassis was what put it aside from all the other manufacturers.
The legend.
The LFA, a great car for its time, great car. And if you have one out there, you can sell it for a lot of money, which I find ridiculous that you can sell a Civic or Acura Integra Type R USDM for like $90,000 now at an auto auction if it's in good condition. These prices are ridiculous. I don't understand it, but oh well, it is what it is.
We have car inflation.
Car inflation at all levels, new and used.
We got to pay for all these airbags I'm not using.
Exactly.
Do you think, another question, so then as like S2000, the price seems to kind of go up.
Oh, absolutely.
In conjunction with so you're saying the old like Integra Type Rs, if you have a mint one, it goes for a lot of money.
It goes for almost $100,000. Last vehicle that went on auction was $85,000.
Huh. Is it more nostalgic, or do you think there's some type of...
No, it's because nerds like you guys that grew up in the 80s have now getting rich, and that one rich guy...
Nailed it. Right there. That's exactly the explanation for it.
Yeah.
Where in the past, a vehicle that was fetching a high dollar amount at an auto auction, let's say Barrett Jackson, for example, was a 37 Ford hot rod, whatever, right? Or classic American muscle.
63 split window.
63 split window, right? now is that 90s Integra, that 90s NSX. Those are fetching the high dollar amounts because those nerds grew up and are making money now, right? And those kids who always wanted to have those Japanese cars from the 90s can afford them now at an auto auction and pay ridiculous amounts of money for it, just like the MK4 Supra.
Yeah,
they're going for over 100,000.
Yeah,
and if you have a clean one or like an anniversary edition, you're going to get a lot of money for it. Again, because generationally, we have grown to now be able to afford those things. To where our interest is not that split window 63, now is that 96, 97 Supra NK4, with the twin turbo original engine still in it.
Oh, dude, if I had the chance to buy a low mileage mint condition Dodge Neon, a 95 four door, I would not do it ever.
Or buy it and then put it on fire so that you could get it out of your memory.
Throw a hand grenade in the window.
Do you see a lot of those on the road these days?
No,
probably not. No, they didn't last. They died.
The engines and the trannies
They died.
Yeah,
they died. They didn't survive.
It was a high maintenance engine.
What was it? The SRT4?
Well, that was the high performance one, right?
The high performance. Was it the Neon SRT4?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. I think
that didn't survive either. I don't see a lot of them on the road.
Yeah.
And if you have one, you're lucky, or you've never driven it.
Those motors would fall apart at like 100, 150.
Yeah, and it was sad when they would put them on the Eclipses too.
Yeah,
those Chrysler engines, they did not last at all. So that's another era or phase or trend that was huge when it came out. It's like, Dodge made a performance car, SRT4. Let's all go to the drag strip. And then like 10 days later, they were blown up. And then people had to get rid of them. And now you don't see any of them on the road compared to a classic Toyota Corolla, 86 or like a classic Honda Civic. They're still ticking.
Dude, that SRT4 Neon looked incredible next to a regular stock Neon.
Oh, yeah. It looked meaty, and it had a little scoop.
Yeah, the hood scoop.
Or I think it was fake scoop, but it had a scoop.
Yeah, get some air in the engine.
Yeah, and it said like 2.4 liter on top, a dual overhead cam and things like that. Oh, yeah, those things were solid. Great looking cars.
Fancy wheels.
Yeah, and you put a big, fart can exhaust on it, and people thought they had like a jet engine in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I have more stuff to say before we close out.
Never gonna end.
The nerds are rejoicing right now.
So this story was on a public road. Legally, don't do anything stupid on a public road. Be safe.
Yes, please. Yes. Controlled environments are the way to go.
My friend Jeremy, shout out to Jeremy.
Disclaimer.
Yeah.
He has a Corvette. What year was it? C7, I think.
Was it one of the
C6 or
early
C7?
C7s?
I forget which one. Damn it.
Okay. Yeah.
Was
it more angular? It was probably C7.
It's one of the new. I want to say within the last 4 years.
Let's call it a 7.
So C7, and I went to go visit him in San Diego. He took me for a test drive, and typically in my S2000, when you're driving on the freeway and they have those signs that say slow down to 15 miles because of the big circle, and then so I like to try to take usually double posted sign. That's what I like to try.
All right, a brave man over here.
So if it's 15, I'll try to aim for 30. If it says 25, I'll try to aim for 50. And I once again, don't do stupid shit on the road. Do not listen to me. So I'll try to the first time, if it's a 25 mile per hour one, I'll take it at 25. Then I'll go to 30.
Oh, you don't just jump automatically to double the postage?
30, 35, 40.
You don't dive bomb at a 60? Wow.
Yeah. So
self-control right there.
So Jeremy had the C7, and he took me. He already test drove it around a couple of those freeway circles, whatever the on ramps,
big on ramps, yeah.
And it was posted 25.
Okay.
He took me for the very first one. He took it at 75. I was about to shit my pants. But that car held and hugged the damn road the whole time. My jaw was dropped, and I was like, holy fuck. If I were to sell my S2000, this would probably be for that experience. It was that fucking good.
Look at that. Wow. You know why the sign says 15, right?
What was that?
You know why the sign says 15, right? The sign says 15 is to make it idiot-proof.
Yeah.
Because they know there's going to be some people out there with a C7. They're going to take it at 75 because the car will stick. You can easily do it at 45, 50, no problem. But they're saying to themselves, the DOT is saying, let's put 15 on here because there's going to be some idiot out there who's going to do it at 75. And we need to make sure that we post the lowest mile an hour we can on this on-ramp.
Yep.
So at least we post the lowest one.
Slow
And
you
if they go
down.
faster, it's their fault, right?
Yep.
Again, they were making that idiot proof. Even the DOT has to make stuff idiot proof, right? So
I'll say this for our audience. Even if you have a car that can do that performance on the road, what's dangerous about the open road, the public roads, is that maybe 2 minutes ago, a dump truck went by and dropped some sand on there. There was a point where I hit some sand with that neon and it did not make the turn.
Roads are dirty. The regular traffic roads are dirty. That's why when it starts to rain and you get a light drizzle, all this stuff starts to come up, and people don't understand that. And the
oil comes out of the asphalt.
The grip that you lose,
Yeah.
and also painted surfaces, those yellow lines, those white lines and stuff, they become ice capades. People don't know this. They think they can still drive at 75 miles an hour, doing a straight line on the 15 once it starts to rain, and they think the car's going to stick the same way. No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
10,000 other cars already dropped some oil, transmission fluid on there, fluids, liquid sand, right?
Yeah.
So
Or fucking tools dropping off the truck. What if you
Right.
hit a wrench at 70? That's the hard part.
So
Coming around the corner.
I gotta add this because we're talking about stuff on the road.
Yeah.
I do driving school for teens for Ford Motor Company.
Hopefully they don't.
jobs.
So
Hopefully they don't listen to the section.
So we travel around the country, different sites. My teammates can tell you that, and so we put on these programs to help teens drive better. So we bring all these teams of professional former race car drivers or teams that are people that are in the industry like me to coach these teens, right? When they're getting their permit or they just got their license.
Drive faster.
Well, we put them through some difficult challenges, right? Things that they've never seen before at a driving school. So the one thing that I always ask, and I do this part of the school called hazard recognition, to where they need to understand and make decisions quickly when they see something on the road. So we travel to different parts of the country and we say, hey guys, so to the teens, what's the one thing that you see out on the road the most that you think is a road hazard? So everywhere we go, we get a different answer. So we usually start in California. So we ask the San Diego kids, hey, what do you guys see out on the road as a hazard? Oh, there's some surfboards out there. I said, okay, good. All right, makes sense. It's San Diego, right? When we take our show to Nashville, you know, what do you guys see out there? Deer. And the number one answer is deer. I see deer all the time. The funny thing is, when we went to Phoenix, and I don't know why, the number one answer was a mattress. So through a period of 5 days, we had different sizes of schools come in.
Yeah.
And the teens were coming in bunches throughout 5 days. It was a morning session, an afternoon session. So we saw a lot of teens.
Yeah.
But the number one answer was always a mattress.
In Phoenix?
In Phoenix.
What's they doing out there?
I'm thinking there's got to be a guy out there just waiting to drop a mattress out of this truck as you're driving on the I-10 in Phoenix. And yeah, my colleagues can tell you that was the number one answer. So to the point where we made a joke about it. It's like, is that what you guys see here in Phoenix? Is mattresses?
Now I know where to get a free mattress.
Yeah, they're all over the freeway. So I started thinking, you know, and sure enough, on my way to the airport after the event, son of a gun, there was a mattress on the freeway.
I'll be damned.
On my way to Phoenix Sky Harbor, I found a mattress on the freeway. I'm thinking it makes sense now. So every region, every area has their number one answer.
Or is it one mattress that never gets picked up?
or that everyone drives by it. You know? Every Phoenix resident has to drive by it. So I find that pretty interesting about objects on the road and hazards on the road. That the number one thing in Phoenix was mattresses. It just had me dying the entire weekend. It was fun.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Dude, in San Diego on Sorrento Valley Road, if you hit that 805 South off-ramp or on-ramp.
I'm familiar with the 805.
So you go, it's a 3-lane on-ramp that kind of goes up a hill and onto the freeway, and then it merges into a 2-lane before you get to the freeway.
Okay.
So I'm in the C5 Corvette, and I'm like, I want to get ahead of this guy. I don't want to have to merge behind this slow ass. So I step on it as I'm going into this 3-lane merging into 2, and it starts drifting, and I power through, and I drift this on-ramp.
Oh, boy.
And I'm sideways through this whole on-ramp and fucking take off down the freeway to get ahead of the traffic. And I was like, man, I wish I could have seen that. That must have been the most awesome fucking thing to see if I was a regular dude driving. But unfortunately, I couldn't watch myself do that unexpected drift.
The things that I see on the road sometimes and how brave people are in regular cars.
Yeah.
I sit back and wonder how they're still alive, you know, because people take chances out there and pretty scary sometimes. Yeah.
You know what I see a lot? There's these cement barriers on the sides of the freeways. Mm-hmm. You start noticing the tire marks on them.
Absolutely.
It's like, man, there's thousands of people hitting these things.
The flyover from the 215 onto the 95 South is a high flyover to the left. Oh man, the right side there, the wall covered in black.
Were you trying to drive off a cliff? Or?
I'm thinking, you guys can't see a concrete barrier there? It's a giant barrier. No, it's covered. And you'll see it all the time. You see the tire scuffs, pieces of a headlamp,
I've never hit one in my life. I can't imagine. Well, the other thing is the damage it must do to your car.
Absolutely. Those things don't move.
Yeah.
They're not going to move. And to see that on a flyover like that, people are like, have a death wish. You're trying to go over the thing.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting. But yeah, I see it all over town and anywhere I drive.
But these are people that would be dead.
Yeah, if it wasn't for those barriers.
So we'd be a smarter society.
That's why you have to make things idiot-proof, right? Even the DOT is like, we can put a regular rail there, a guardrail, just a skinny metal one. Nah, we had to put the full concrete barrier. Yeah, we had to make it idiot-proof. Number one rule of engineering.
You guys are too fun to talk to. I know Lem's trying to get to the final questions.
All right.
I think it's the final question about pizza. But he's having too much fun.
Eladio is awesome.
I feel pretty good about it. I mean, like, if he wants to keep talking, I'm down.
Dude, there's been people who've been trying to get off here. Like, all right, let's wrap it up.
Well, that was a great conversation. Bye. Gotta go.
All right. First of the final questions. What great daily habit or habits do you have?
Work more jobs. Work more.
What daily habits I have?
Daily habit or habits that you have?
Daily habit.
Great daily habit or
Great
habits.
daily habit to
No pressure.
to make someone laugh at least once. And I don't have to be a super clown. I just like to make at least one person laugh throughout my day, and then I check that off, the box, and I'm done. I'm not super funny or like a super comedian or a clown all the time, but I just like to crack a joke every once in a while, not a dirty joke or anything, just a situational joke, something that I see happen in the office, and then I say something funny. Someone laughs. Okay, my job here is done. I can go home. It could be 6:30 in the morning. I'm already done.
Dude, you had us at the DeLorean was a terrible car, but it was a perfect choice.
It's a perfect choice. Last Fast and Furious, you guys saw that one?
I didn't.
Where they went to space.
No, I didn't see that.
Okay,
one.
then I'm not going to spoil it for you. Okay, good. You guys got to watch it. So then you're going to tell me about the perfect car they chose to go to space.
Must have been a Tesla.
Hollywood is awesome.
DeLorean.
No, it was not a DeLorean.
Oh,
You'll see.
okay. Next question. What do you know or think of cryptocurrency?
I don't know anything about it, and I think it's scary as heck. And then a lot of my friends watching this who do cryptocurrency are going to be like, you're such a whiz. I think it's another trend, honestly. I think it's another trend, and whoever's in it right now and making money, please, more power to you. I just don't think it's for me. I think there's a scary aspect to it where it's going to blow up, and then there's going to be a lot of people crying. But I might be completely wrong. I don't know much about it. I just stay away from it.
Yeah, that's too easy. Eladio wants to work hard to get money.
I'm old-fashioned, even in making money. If someone said, "Hey, buy this cryptocurrency, and then you can have 300,000 by tomorrow," I'm going to think about it. I'm not going to be like, "Yeah, let's buy it."
Oh, how much do we have to buy?
I'm very old school. Yeah. And when it comes to making money,
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Next question. What's the biggest problem for humans, and what do we do to fix it?
Man, that was a deep question. What kind of podcast is this?
Heavy hitter. Yeah.
Good grief. The biggest problems of humans is the
Fun's over, bro.
The inability to be caring and compassionate towards others. Where we live in a society that's very independent, a society that's very single, to where others don't matter. And that's one of the biggest things that hurt society these days, where the guy sitting next to me, if he's right now bleeding on the floor, I don't want to touch him. I don't want to help him because I'm afraid that if I do something wrong and he survives, he's going to sue me. Mm-hmm. So we have built a society of a lot of alone stuff, a lot of single stuff, a lot of independent people who have lost that care and compassion for others. So that's the biggest thing in my eyes that's hurting humanity.
That's a good one, yeah.
Boy, I pulled that one out of my rear end. That's awesome.
Oh, but it's true.
That's a great question. Man, you got me with that one. A lot of podcasts don't go this route, so we're well done, sir.
Yeah.
What systematic thing would you do to change it?
That's going to be a tough one because it has to start with the people, and it has to start with society itself and culture. And we are so far off the deep end on lack of culture and education that even though I work in education, I know we're hurting big time. Like this morning, I saw the article about we're 49th in the country in education.
Oh, in Vegas?
Yeah.
In Nevada?
In the Clark County School District.
Woo! Who are we fighting? Mississippi? Alabama?
No, they're actually way ahead of us.
They're getting ahead?
So I don't know who's 50th.
Shit, I want to know who's last.
But I think it needs to take a turn in the family structure, which we don't have anymore. The children come from a ton of broken families. So if there's going to be any changes, family structure needs to change and education needs to change. And right now we don't have any of either, unfortunately. Things have broken down so badly where a person without good education, good morals, good value, good family structure is now teaching that to a younger generation, and we continue to break down as humans.
So if I see a person bleeding on the side of the road, I'm going to stop, I'm going to save their life, I'm going to help them, and then if they sue me, I'm going to kill them.
And then you're going to say, I should have left you there. And then we see a lot of things like that to where we don't want to get involved because we're afraid of the consequences.
Oh, yeah.
But we're not putting our brother or sister first. We're putting that fear first because society has made us that way.
Yep.
And it's pretty sad. Yep. So that's one, like I said, what's hurting us the most.
That's a deep insight. That's a good
one.
Oh, thank you. Wow, I feel pretty good right now.
I feel good about you helping teams.
My ego is just like way up here. We're going to need another seat, another bench for my ego, right? Yeah. When I drive home, I'm going to need another back seat for it. Got to put it somewhere.
It's going to throw off the weight of your suspension.
The suspension.
It's too heavy.
Throw the balance of the car.
Next question. What's your favorite food or dish?
Favorite food or dish?
Questions get harder and harder.
Man, these things get more difficult. I don't consider myself a big foodie. I do hang out with people who love food. I am a stickler for that Spanish food. And because I grew up in South Florida, in Miami, we had all these influences from the Caribbean, Central South America, right?
Pinto gallo?
Gallo pinto is the other way. Is the other way around. No, you got it. You're good. I'm here to help.
Okay. Gracias.
Yeah, so I grew up with all those influences, food from different countries, and Puerto Rican food, Dominican food. So if it's Spanish food, I'm all about it. I love it. Colombian and Venezuelan, I love it.
It has to have plantains in it.
Oh, if it has plantains, you sold me. You can just give me some plantains. I'm good. And it's funny, in my house growing up, we're big on rice.
Yeah.
Rice goes with everything. So if you had meatballs and spaghetti, you have to have a cup of rice right next to it. Otherwise, you're not eating properly.
Oh, wow.
And if you have plantains, now you're solid. So we will incorporate as a side, whether there were fried plantains or sweet plantains with rice, with anything you ate. If it was a piece of steak, you better have that rice. And if you go to a restaurant, that's what you're expecting in my culture.
Yeah.
So, no, I'm not Asian, but I love rice. Because I grew up in that type of house and that type of culture.
That means you're part Asian.
I might be a little Asian. But I'm biased to all Spanish food. Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
Last question. Shout out 2 friends that you think should do this podcast.
Shout out 2 friends that should do this podcast. One definitely is going to be Robert Strohmeyer. He is a realtor here in town, former race car driver, full-time dad. So shout out to Rob.
Nice.
I used to help him with his racing projects and with his race car, and I was his crew chief too. And very knowledgeable guy, former military, excellent individual. I think Robert should be it.
Is he German?
No, he's not.
Okay.
No. Well, I don't know. No, I think he's got some Irish in him or Scottish. I'm not sure.
All right.
He'll tell you. So Robert Strohmeyer, if you're listening, you should do this podcast because the way I see him, and I think you guys have Renee here too, good friend of mine, well-rounded individuals, guys that can talk about Lamborghinis and S2000s on the drop of a dime, and they can also tell you about the what's lacking in our society as well. So, so I think Rob will be great to come and do that. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, second person.
Oh, second person. Oh shit, I forgot about one more.
Nice try.
Oh man, I thought I was going to sneak out of this one. I'm trying to think who else can. Again, I have a lot of great friends, a lot of people that I surround myself with, and shout out to them.
We need some strong female voices.
Some strong female voices. Yeah.
Or represent.
Yeah. Now I got to think about a strong female voice that I would like for her to do this podcast. And I'm thinking another realtor. So I don't know if you guys are going to be overwhelmed with realtors. Candace Gregg, if she can do that too, that would be fantastic. So I think well-rounded people, again, very knowledgeable individuals who are been in Las Vegas for a very long time, and I think they can bring a lot of good information, knowledge, and fun.
Awesome.
They're both very comedic and fun to be around. So yeah, those two. Yeah,
Awesome.
Female voice, great for thinking about that. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well,
All right.
realtors tend to be outgoing too.
Let's call this the end.
Let's call it
Thank
the
you,
end.
gentlemen.
Cheers.
Thank you,
Cheers.
Eladio.
A pleasure. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Coming, man. Great talk.
Cool.